Thank you for your patience. We're running a little behind. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If I could have a motion to approve the agenda for the business meeting of tonight, November 17th, 2025.
Eric and Jim?
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. What I'd like to do is we are going to provide an accolade. There are many students here for the boys at varsity soccer. So if I could invite Denise Wickham to please join us. And I'm going to say, take it from here.
So I just wanted to give a shout out for our boys soccer team. They were Section 2 Class B champions this year with a nice win over Mechanicville. I do not see a lot of them here, but I do see some of their parents. It was a great season for the boys. I'm very proud of them and wish them all the best in the future. She did. Another accolade would be for our boys cross country team. We did have 2 of our runners that made it to the States this year, and they are both here. If I could ask them to come up. Clarence Corcoran and Cohen Wilbur. Clarence and Cohen both ran at States in Queensbury this past weekend, and they were out of 129 runners, they were 39th and 41, and which puts them in the top third of the state, which we're very, very excited for them. And they got a promising future ahead because they will be back again next year.
If I could just, again, piggyback on what Denise said, it's really impressive when our sports teams are able to achieve this level. It doesn't happen all that often. In an individual sport, there's nothing quite like running because, again, you are really up against your own time and you're self-driven. So I really appreciate the commitment that you boys have shown with your teammates to continue to excel. And our boys soccer program, our girls soccer program had a great year. It's just a lot of fun to see a community rally behind your successes. You make us proud, so thank you.
All right, then I'm going to move us on to open forum. And the Greenville Central School District wishes to facilitate public access to the meetings of the Board of Education and to provide an opportunity for public comment at these meetings. Accordingly, the open forum provides an opportunity for members of the public to share thoughts about topics on the agenda. An individual's comments shall be limited to 5 minutes. Additionally, comments can be emailed to the district clerk, Daphne Pearson, using the email pearsond@greenvillecsd.org. In order for an email to be read during the meeting, it must be received by 4 p.m. on the day of the meeting and state that the email is to be read out loud. Emails shall be limited to 600 words. Please note, this is not the time to register complaints that need to be addressed confidentially through the proper channels. Remarks that might be considered defamatory, obscene, profane, stigmatizing, or otherwise impermissible in public forums are prohibited and will be declared out of order. Board members actively listen during the open forum, but may not immediately respond to comments. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Just come up to the mic, state your name, even if we know who you are. And that's more for the record. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Margaret Kelly. Thank you for this opportunity. I see that looks like there's some appointments of new board members for the vacancies included in the agenda. And myself and many others are wondering what the process was for selection. At the last meeting, we got the sense that there was going to be a process and we would be kept informed as to what the process was. And I don't think we expected to learn what the process was at the same time things were happening. So, or another way of saying what was the process is, hey, you never called me, you know, I was home and everything, but no. Anyway, so we're wondering what the process was. And then to follow up with that, I want to, and maybe this is getting to be my broken record, but I want to thank the board members and those who have come forward to fill the vacancies, because it is a lot of responsibility and a lot of work, and that things are very different on that side of the podium than here, you know, expressing one's opinion versus representing the community, making sure that you understand the role of the board and what a board can and can't do, and where your personal opinions versus representing the community, where that line is. It's not an easy line to walk, and we definitely appreciate how well all of you have been doing with that, and we look forward to that same attention to doing things right to the new board members, whether they're appointed tonight or elected sometime in the future. Thank you.
There was another person, just come on up.
Thank you. I'll be reading off of this. I'm not good with my words. Don't read it. But if you don't know me, I'm Trisha. I'm a parent of 3 students here, all who participate in the athletics programs that our school and community has to offer. I'm here to speak in regards to the Greenville Youth Basketball Program. I want to emphasize that a majority of parents support the idea that in-season sports benefiting students of our district should receive priority for middle school and high school gym space for the purposes of gameplay and consistent practices at any of our gym spaces. I'm not sure if this is an oversight, but I'm hoping that we can find a way to offer more time to this program that gives so much back to our students and district. The reality is that approximately 120 students in GYB are the same kids who will soon be participating in Greenville School athletics. They're athletically inclined, motivated, and committed. They're the future of our modified JV and varsity programs. When these students don't have access to games or adequate practice space in their own district, they generally have 2 options. They can quit. They can no longer pursue what they found fun and engaging, because while at the age of being open to learning and playing and being actively involved, their opportunities were limited, making their experience feel less fun and less engaging. Or families are forced to make a difficult choice, and those choices may turn into finding outside programs like travel leagues to meet their children's growing interest and need for development. While these programs are valuable, they come with significant cost implications, often hundreds or even thousands of dollars per season, plus travel equipment and time away from the community. Not every family can afford that, and when our local youth athletes have to go elsewhere for training and skill development, the district ultimately misses out. These children represent the pipeline to future school teams. The stronger and more supported they are at the youth level, the stronger our modified JV and varsity teams will be down the line. Youth programs like GYB help athletes build foundational skills long before they ever wear a school uniform. That benefits the district directly in competitiveness, in school spirit, and in community pride. This isn't just about gym space, though you would, This isn't just about gym space for this season, it's about investing in the long-term success for our student athletes and ensuring that the opportunities that they deserve are available right here in their own district. It's our responsibility to provide our district students with what is supposed to be available to them. Please consider a priority policy for our athletics programs for the school and community in regards to scheduling, with a majority rules students first mentality.
Come on up.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jessica Morrison. I am the organizer of our Fury AAU basketball team that's located mostly within this school and Greene County as well. Our program is not directly related to Greenville Youth Basketball, but we do start our program right after theirs, with the majority of our players coming from GYB. And also, a lot of our players coming from the Greenville School District. Our players did very well this past year, playing against some of the best in Albany, Saratoga, Hudson area. It was shocking to receive compliment after compliment from referees, coaches, and even opposite team players about how respectful our team handled themselves throughout the many games we played. A coach from Newburgh thanked us for playing fairly and kind and being the best team to lose to. In Saratoga, we won the championship after multiple competitive games. The last game was so close, but we came out on top with the opposite team player saying, "This was such a fun game to play with you guys. I don't even mind that we lost." After winning a Hudson tournament, the referee came up to myself and my husband saying, "Wow, what a great couple of games. Greenville came out of nowhere and you guys are on the map." This was shortly after our GCS varsity team had played in sectionals. We graciously took the compliment, but my husband explained to him, all of these kids have been playing together for years, and credits the Greenville Youth Basketball Program for the years of fundamentals that they had received. I mention these events not to brag, though I do love to talk about what great players we have. These kids know how to play games respectfully because it was taught to them at a very young age. Respect the game, respect your opposing teammates, respect the referees, and respect the coaches. A great part of the youth basketball program with games and scrimmages is that the games can be stopped. Corrections can be made. Games can be very intimidating, playing in front of spectators. It can be an obstacle to overcome, but playing at such an early age gives them confidence to now walk onto a bright lit court with their head held high. A wonderful example of this is our Greenville Youth Soccer program, starting games at the age of 4, now giving our varsity players knowledge and confidence walking onto the field. Practices are crucial, but putting that practice into use in a game is where the skills are learned and obtained. I respectfully plead for the middle school and high school gyms to be open to Greenville's youth. It is an imperative part of this organization and our youth and our students. Thank you so much.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? All right, then I'm going to move. Oh, wait, you're right, I'm sorry. Yes, Daphne, do we have any emails?
We have one. This is an email that I received today from Ms. Wolf. There's been concerns over vaping in the schools for years now, and unfortunately has become the normal. Teachers and students are unfazed by it at this point. For years, students who don't want to be associated with vaping have been waiting to use the restroom till they get home into a safer space. You may not be aware that boys and girls have been doing this, but this is what they do. This is what they have to do in order to avoid the vaping, to feel safe. No student should have to hold it till they come home. I hope you see how terrible of a situation this is, and to decide to do something for the students who are concerned about their own safety. Perhaps add a special vaping bathroom. Get a sign on the door to let all know that they are welcome and safe to smoke there. At least there's a way for kids who don't smoke can then have their own safe space too. Perhaps let's continue to condone the activity by placing a vape store within a safe walking distance from school. The town made sure a child can use the sidewalk safely to pick up their tobacco, so why not provide a safe space for them to smoke it? Since you can't seem to stop it, the least you can do is to make them feel safe to smoke it. Clearly, you can see how ridiculous that mentality is. This behavior is one who does not care for the well-being of a child, such as adding a vape store within a certain distance from a school, which is certainly also illegal. The safety committee for the school can do much more for the safety of the children other than making sure there are fresh batteries in all fire alarms and reporting injuries. These vaping concerns have been raised before on the committee, but have fallen to deaf ears with no solution. There are free resources available for schools, yet even those are frowned upon by principals and officials of the school because you already pay someone to do this for you. I'm sure we would all love to hear from this person who is being paid by us to do something about vaping and tobacco use in Greenville School, because right now it looks like nothing is being done to stop it. The kids that don't vape are advocating for themselves in a way that could lead to further health problems. Today I write for all the students that don't feel safe to use the bathrooms because of vaping, because holding your pee isn't an option anymore. Let's be the first at school to make a change on vaping and reverse the statistic and not add to it. Lastly, on a separate note, there's room on the gym schedule, it just needs to be figured out or moved around. Greenville basketball has a reputation of raising up amazing players. It will be a shame if that comes to an end. Thank you for listening to the concerns of a parent. That's all.
All right, then, if we don't have any more comments, then I'm going to move us on to the presentations. So Denise Wickham, the Director of HPE and Athletics, is going to be giving us an update for the fall season. So hello again, Denise.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me back. So I'm going to run down through how we did this fall. It was an amazing season across the board for all of our kids. Boys cross country, Jolly Tracy, he does a wonderful job with the kids. Our MVP, we had Patroon Conference MVP this year was Clarence Corcoran. First team was Cohen Wilbur. Also Jacob Ford on the first team. Second team was Aaron Ross. Jolly was named Coach of the Year. And we were Patroon Conference champions in boys cross country this year. They also won the Greene County Cup, which is a bowling pin. Why? I don't know. But we had that. And they're a scholar athlete team. Girls cross country, again, coached by Jolly Tracy. First team, Evelyn Corcoran and Charlotte Dawson. Second team, Skylar Ryder. And they are also a scholar athlete team. Both of these teams actually, which is quite an honor, are going to regionals this weekend, this Saturday, down in Wapager Falls. We have 4 girls attending and 5 boys attending that. And it's, post-state, so it's an honor to be recommended to go. And we wish them the best. It's the season that keeps on going into the next season. But it's great. Golf this year, coached by Robert Gray. First team, Landon Smigel and also Carl Houlihan. Second team, Sean Kenna and Samuel Morrison. They were also co-Patroon champions this year. We pretty much had almost all of our teams be Patroon champions this fall, so it was pretty good. And also scholar athlete team. Girls tennis, coached by Matthew Lacey, and first team was Cadence Gallagher, and we were co-Patroon champions in girls tennis as well, and they're a scholar athlete team. Boys soccer, as I mentioned before, went on to regionals this year, and they were Section 2 champions. They're also Patroon Conference champions this season. So we had quite a list of people, and they were coached by Tyke Russell. First team was Lucas Russell and Isaac McEnany and Christopher Hughes. Second team, Beckett Kosich, Joseph Barnes, and Alex Ingalls. They are also a scholar athlete team. Girls soccer, coached by Alita Fabian, made it to the semifinals of sectionals and again came up against Mechanicville, and we will get them at some point. MVP this year was Ariana Good. First team, Julia Reinhardt, Anna Mata, and Molly Gardner. Second team, Morgan Crawley, Avery McEnany, and Catherine Cohen. Coach of the Year this year, Alita Fabian, and we were Patroon Conference champions. They're also a scholar athlete team. So not only are we doing that on the field, but we're doing it in the classroom, which I'm really proud of these guys. Girls volleyball, coached by Lynn Hughes. Co-MVP, Jancy King. First team, Kalina Donlin. Second team, Samantha Capazzi and Molly Robertson. And they're a scholar athlete team. So it was, again, a really productive fall for the athletes and for the coaches. I want to thank the coaches for doing such a splendid job.
All right, thank you, Denise, and thank you to all our wonderful athletes, I would say. now I'd like to invite the administrators to come on down. And our next presentation is the school comprehensive education plans for this year, school year 2025-2026. So this is based on the DCIP and the BCIP implementation. Hello.
Hello, good evening, everyone. So we're going to do our best, Ms. Morgan and I, to be Mr. Berkshire here with these opening slides, and then we'll come up in stages with the elementary staff and Mr. Urban, middle school and high school, to just go through where we are with our building BSIP plans for this year, and some of the action steps that started already. Again, good evening, and as you know, we every summer create our GSIP and BSIP plans, going through 2 days of a lot of data. Tonight's presentation will highlight our goals, priorities for our current academic year, which are designed to, again, to always foster student engagement, support safe and inclusive environments, and strengthen partnerships with our families and communities. Unique initiatives align with the district's overarching objectives, ensuring that we meet the needs of all our students. So we look forward to sharing our progress with you and showing the community how we continue to work together to make Greenville School District a place where everyone learns, teaches, and belongs. Next slide just gives you a quick update on where we are with the continuous school improvement calendar. So tonight is our buildings, again, presenting you our building plans.
Okay, so this slide represents a quick refresher on our school improvement framework. So just as a reminder, some of the acronyms that are up there, we have a DSIP plan, that's our district continuous improvement plan. Our DSIP has 3 goals and 4 priorities. It's aligned closely to each building's school improvement or improvement plan, and it creates a unified framework across the district. And then at each building level there's the BSIP, which also, every building has their own BSIP, which also includes the 3 goals and the 4 priorities. And these plans are supported by the DSIP, ensuring consistency across schools. And on the side there's the focus acts of improvement. This model focuses on our continuous cycle that we follow. It's planning, implementing, evaluating, and improving. So keep these in mind as we go through our updates today. Just a reminder, you've seen these goals earlier this year, maybe it was late summer, I can't recall the date. But here are our goals for the district. We have 2 curriculum goals, well, one goal with 2 priorities. So our curriculum goal is to engage all students in relevant, challenging learning that motivates them to be collaborative, creative, and inquisitive. We will work towards this by strengthening our vertical and horizontal alignment across curriculum, instruction, and assessment, and also by continuing to support the full implementation of the bookworms curriculum. Our culture goal is to provide a welcoming, safe, secure, supportive, and engaging school environment where all students thrive. We will make progress by expanding student wellness and prevention efforts through strengthening partnerships with a community-based organization, and also by integrating these services into our district's multi-tiered system of supports. And then our community goal is to partner with families in the broader community to improve student learning and well-being. This will take place through improved family engagement and trust, supported by clear expectations and systems for timely two-way communication. Now I'll pass it on to Mr. Urban and his team.
If you want, why don't you take the microphone that's on the podium, because then at least you'll have a second one.
Good evening, everybody. Try that again. Good evening. I'd like to take just a minute to introduce some members of our Ellis BLT. To my right is Mrs. Laura Calvino, one of our amazing ELA coaches. She's going to speak to the implementation of our bookworms program. Next to Laura is Denise Mulholland, a BLT member, 4th grade teacher. Going to speak to our culture goal. And down at the end we have Miss Aileen Roth, 1st grade teacher. She's going to talk to you a little bit about our communication goal, which has to do with family communication this year. So I'm going to turn it over to Laura. Just as a reminder, our first goal, which is our curriculum goal, has 2 strategies. This year we're working on both bookworms, which Laura will speak to, and then I'll talk to you a little bit about our work with executive functioning that's continuing.
Both of our goals are intertwined, so that's great. So I'm speaking about our first priority, which is to strengthen foundational literacy skills by implementing the core components of the bookworms curriculum. To give you an update on our goal, we were working towards full implementation of the 3 blocks in all K-5 classrooms. So we now have all K-5 classroom teachers instructing using the bookworm scopes and routines and assessments in all 3 blocks, which are ELA, which is a knowledge building and writing block, our shared reading, which is grade level reading, partner reading, building fluency, and vocab and comp block, and our DI block, which is differentiated instruction, where students are working on the skills that they need in small group based on the data that we had from the beginning of the year. So we're currently everybody is teaching all 3 of those blocks. Another part of our goal was continuous professional development, and just in September and October alone, we've had release days for teachers to work together and to work with our coach. We have a coach from the University of Delaware from Bookworms who is meeting with teachers through Zoom right now, and she'll be coming in person in May as well. In March. And just today we had a faculty meeting where she met with our K-2 teachers via Zoom. She's also meeting with myself and the other coach on a continuous basis. We have embedded professional development throughout the day for classroom teachers, interventionists, TAs, aides. We've had trainings at the superintendent conference days and met with teachers during their planning time and team meetings. Let's see, what else? We've had communication with families through our open house presentations and parent letters, and we are on track right now. We've created pacing guides to be able to complete the first 3 modules, and we are on track to complete all 3 modules and into the 4th module. As any new program, it's been a heavy lift for everybody, but we're super proud of all of our teachers for the hard work that they put in this year. And although we're only 10 weeks in, we don't have a lot of quantitative data, but we do have qualitative data. We see kids excited about the books that they're reading. We have bulletin boards up all around the school of each grade level and the books they've read, and the kids will gather outside and point to the books, talk about them. The great thing is, like, in the 4th grade hallway, there was a whole bunch of 4th graders. They weren't even from the same class. They were just from the same grade level, and they were talking about the books. So there's this great shared experience within classrooms, and then also within grade levels in the whole school. Let's see. I've heard reports from teachers saying that they get to the end of the book and the whole classroom is crying because they don't expect that character is going to end up the way it did. And so there's been surprises and just lots of engagement. Kids love the time of the day where they get to read with partners and reread books. So we're seeing just lots of joy and excitement through this program. So yeah, we're very pleased with the progress that we're making towards our goal and what we're seeing so far.
Have you seen anything with, we're still using the reading program, and so with that integration, particularly at the earlier grades, and if you could just move your microphone a little bit closer, please, thanks.
Sure. Well, we're only 10 weeks in. We haven't had a chance, we just assessed kids at the beginning of the year in end of September, so it hasn't been that long. So we are seeing progress as far as every 2 weeks we do little progress checks with kids, and we're seeing some really good growth in their oral reading fluency so far. But I
guess my question is more like from the teacher's perspective and integrate both of them and so forth, then we haven't heard any issues or?
No, because the shared reading and the ELA, those are knowledge building, that's totally separate. What we are doing is, during that DI block, we're taking not what bookworms gave us, but we're taking the really great reading and using the routines from bookworms to be able to deliver a second instruction to students that need it during that DI time. So they still have their RGR, their really great reading time during the day for their tier 1 instruction, and then they're getting it again when they need it during that DI time. So it's mirroring very well.
You mentioned that you're working with a coach from Delaware,
Yes.
from Bookworms itself. What kind of feedback are you able to provide to her or him in order that they can assess how the program's going for us?
Well, right now, we speak with her on a monthly basis and sometimes more than that, and give her some feedback as to what's happening. She's also met with our teachers, so she's able to tell what level of understanding they have based on her experience with other school districts. And the feedback that we've gotten from her is that because we rolled the program out the way we did, and we gave them a lot of time last year to be able to learn the program and be able to try parts of it in their classroom, that this has been, in her opinion, a very successful implementation of the program. That our teachers are really far ahead of where most teachers are at this point of first year of implementation.
Thanks, Laura. All right, so one of the things that Laura alluded to was this nice overlap or overlay that Bookworms provides for us, both as a curriculum resource, but also as a resource in addressing some of these executive functioning goals that we've set for ourselves. So if I could take just 30 seconds and remind everyone, when we're talking about executive functioning, we are talking about a student's ability to stay organized, to handle time and task management, to regulate themselves, self-regulation, accountability, goal setting, and working memory. So for us, executive functioning is what's happening in a child's brain as they're learning. There's been a lot of research around this topic lately. In fact, we had it in our BSIP last year as well, so we thought we would continue the work that we started last year. And again, this particular program, Bookworms, is a very structured, consistent, predictable series of routines for our students. So when you talk about skills like organization, working memory, time and task management, this curriculum is almost perfectly suited to address those needs of our students, and we're seeing that. Students now have the ability to go back to their desk as young as first and second grade, put away one book, take out the notebook, sit down, and start their work independently. And I think this curriculum really lends itself to that, and that's worth noting. There are several other components of the curriculum that I think are helpful in addressing some of these executive functioning needs of our students. There is an interactive read aloud piece. Laura mentioned the shared reading piece, which includes both choral reading, so that's the teacher and the students reading together. Then they have the opportunity to read with a partner. In some cases, they then reread independently. So there are multiple opportunities to reread the same passage again and again. Fluency practice, vocabulary routines, and then the idea that we are reading and writing every day. So these are very predictable, consistent routines. And we're noticing that, Laura mentioned kind of the term heavy lift at first. As we kind of settle into these routines, they're becoming much more approachable for both our students and our teachers as well, and I think that's important to note. One of the other things that we're doing, I think that is important to note, is sharing strategies for our teachers to address some of the executive functioning needs of our students. I do send out a weekly principals bulletin. Once a month, I have been including some resources for teachers. In September, we compiled a bunch of the most recent research on executive functioning, what our teachers need to know to start the year. In October, we focused specifically on some organization strategies for our students. This information, by the way, and this topic of executive functioning, the data that helped us to identify which skills are the most important skills came from a teacher survey. That survey found that about 80% of our teachers, so 4 out of 5 teachers, pointed to self-regulation as a very significant area of need, and also organization. And I know that Denise is going to speak to you shortly about zones of regulation. One of the main motivators for our adoption of that program school-wide was our teachers' recognition that self-regulation was an issue for our students at Ellis. We had a wonderful conversation at our superintendent's conference day in regards to the portrait of a graduate and what that meant for us at Ellis at the elementary level. One of our teachers thoughtfully pointed out that the majority of the skills that high school requires for students for portrait of a graduate are executive functioning skills. Now, keep that in mind as I tell you, we were also having kind of a simultaneous conversation about artificial intelligence. So what we did was we used AI to cross-reference New York State Portrait of a Graduate and the needed executive functioning skills. And what we came up with was a nice little blueprint for the skills that our kids are going to need to address those coming challenges of Portrait of a Graduate. So I have that information available. I won't share it now. It took about 90 seconds. Last but not least, I would just like to take a minute to talk about self-regulation. I know I'm going to pass it over to Denise, and she's going to talk about zones of regulation. But again, I do think it's important to point out that the majority of our teachers feel that this is an issue, and I do think we're doing our best to address that issue through the zones of regulation. We can point to certain areas of school where we see problematic behavior, and they are the less structured places. Lunch, recess, hallways, bathrooms, buses. These are the areas that we're really trying to help our students with, to give them strategies when there are not adults around to help. We're going to be doing a couple of surveys throughout the year. We'll do one mid-year in January to kind of just gauge how we're doing. At last survey, so last spring, only about 35% of our teachers felt comfortable supporting self-regulation strategies. So that gap between the acknowledgement and kind of the recognition that 80% of our kids are struggling with this, but only 35% of our teachers feel comfortable in addressing it, is kind of what helped us focus in on this is where we need to put our energy and our effort. And so our goal is to have that number, that percentage increase. We'd like to see it up to 40% by January and all the way up to 80% by June. So we have some ambitious goals, but I do believe that we have the tools and resources to accomplish those goals. Any questions before I turn it over to Denise? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So yes, I'm discussing goal 2, which is our culture goal, which aims to provide a welcoming, safe, supportive, and engaging environment for everyone involved, basically. This fall, all our classroom teachers started by filling out the aperture survey for each student in our classroom. This survey places students in 3 social emotional categories: need, typical, and strength. The initial assessment will then lead to any student that comes up in a need category for us to further assess with more questions, to really focus in and identify on what the student might be struggling with within the social emotional learning category. Students that come up as high need, we are then, as classroom teachers, work within our team of any other adult that's in the classroom with us, our PPS staff as well, to try and effectively come up with some strategies that may help, that child. Our goal this year is to increase the number of students identified as typical or strength by 5% from our September assessment to when we do it again in June at the end of the year. So how do we help these students with this. Ellis continues to use the responsive classroom model to help address some of the behavior and academic concerns that face some of our students. Responsive classroom has many components to it, but the majority of strategies are used to help both behavioral and academic expectations through interactive modeling. So teachers are actually showing students what is expected within a certain environment or within a certain task. For example, within the first day of school, most teachers try and get out to the playground, and I'm going to go down the slide and show you how you walk up the stairs and you slide down the slide versus running up the slide, and you know, those types of things, just to set that expectation right from the beginning, so a student can't say, well, I didn't know I wasn't supposed to climb up the slide, right? It's kind of the response that they often will give. So this is taken to pretty much any level that you could think in a classroom, from using a pencil sharpener to how to come back into the classroom from a band lesson, from another activity that you were doing, where I come in and I start, hey, I'm back, what am I supposed to do? You know, that's not how we enter a room. So this kind of explicit teaching of behaviors that then kind of sets the tone, I guess you would say, for the building, for individual classrooms, and really can relax that student that is a little anxious about what am I supposed to do, what am I supposed to do, right? We set that example for them. Every classroom is instituting at some point of the day a classroom meeting. Try and do it in the morning. Schedules are kind of tight, so mine's kind of in the middle of the morning. This time teaches skills like communication, waiting our turn to speak, how to be a good listener when it's not your turn to share, those kinds of things that transfer across the classroom to an academic time as well. Also this year we are kind of fine-tuning, I would say, our zones of regulation program. It has been a program at Ellis for a couple of years, but I think we really kind of tried to make it better. So our PPS team and Lori Gardner, our OT, are implementing school-wide lessons. So a member of the team has been assigned a grade level, and they have come into every classroom. I believe everyone has had 2 lessons already to complete the first module, which focused on self-regulation. So along with what Matt was just saying, it was an area that teachers were a little bit uncomfortable in knowing how to do this or how to instruct. So I can say just from personal experience, having Rachel Finkel come in to do the 2 lessons in my classroom, it helps with the common language. I know what to use and what to say, or that they've heard it from her as well. And then this carries across the whole building. So the program has 12 modules, I believe, and the goal this year is to get through about half of them by June. So that's well on its way and being implemented. As always, the challenge is to encourage students to use what they learn in school, outside of school. So for elementary students, this means information needs to reach parents and guardians. So this has been done in a variety of ways as well. We've included brochures on both zones of regulation and responsive classroom during our open house time. I think Matt has some with him if you're interested in seeing that. We have QR codes on them that also link to information through either Mr. Urban's update that he sends out, video updates to parents. Teachers send out bi-weekly newsletters, attach little reminders that connect to either a responsive classroom strategy or something that has come up before, self-regulation, things to do at home that can help too. Because for us, that parent connection is imperative to be successful with a child. Because they walk out of school and it all leaves their head. They don't necessarily connect what they do in school to how they use that outside of school. So I think we're on a good start.
I have a question on, you were talking about the aperture survey. Is that information shared with parents as well so that they can individually, like if, as an elementary parent, if my child is someone who needs help with certain things, is that information being communicated home?
So I would say, from my perspective as a classroom teacher, that would come up at a parent-teacher conference meeting with the parent. We don't necessarily share out the aperture data or the survey, but what would come up in that would be a discussion that the teacher would bring up to the parent.
Cool. That common language.
Yeah, yeah.
I was just looking out of curiosity. It's 12% of our students that have kind of fallen into this needs category. And I would agree with Denise, and I would say that we have reached out and connected with those families that are supporting those families. And this is a nice time too with communication, but I did bring, and I'll leave them up here in case anybody wants to grab one. If you'd like to see a morning meeting or an interactive modeling lesson, these are the handouts that we gave to parents at open house. We tried to make them accessible because what we're finding, honestly, in some of these discussions with parents is that the things that we're struggling with at school, parents are struggling with at home as well. And these interactive modeling strategies, these executive functioning skills, they don't stop and end when you get to school. You know, you take them to the basketball game with you or the soccer field, and you practice them there as well. So I think it's important, and it's a perfect segue to pass it over to Aileen.
Before you move on to
Yeah.
or Denise, I have a question on that. I really appreciate the fact that you're working on executive function and self-regulation. Not unfortunately, but I'm sure you all know that the dividends on this kind of work is going to be paid down the student's life, and one more concrete measures that we use, the dividends will be paid there. But I'm wondering if any of these modules that you're using, do the students get direct feedback, or is it just in the aperture, or is there some way that we are using some matrix to measure how they're doing, improving or declining?
That's a great question. I guess I would start by saying that they have reconfigured the entire zones regulation curriculum to be more interactive for students. So it was in the past a paper and pencil, kind of a stereotypical lesson where someone would have a lesson and you'd have an activity. This now we can put up on our new one-screen boards, and we have the students coming up to play games and do matching and watching videos. So that interactive aspect of it, I think, makes it a little bit more approachable and engaging for the kids. I agree with you. I think that this was a discussion with teachers, because we have teachers at Ellis. Most of our teachers are excellent classroom managers, and they really don't see a lot of self-regulation related behavior concerns in the classroom. And so there was a sense like, do we really need to be doing this? And we had a discussion about, well, let's look at where the behaviors are happening. And I think after we did that, it was pretty clear that, yeah, we need to look at these in-between places, so that when they go up to middle school next year and there's a little bit more freedom to make good or bad choices, hopefully these skills that we're kind of embedding in them at Ellis now, they'll be able to take with them. In regards to your question about kind of assessment, again, I would say that our PPS team does an excellent job. We meet weekly for an hour a week, and we are kind of actively engaged with those families and those teachers of those students that we feel like fit a certain criteria, particularly with behavior or executive functioning. I think we have, I'm confident to say we've identified them, we have strategies in place. I would say, off the top of my head, we probably have 12 to 15 students that have an individualized social emotional learning plan in place at school, which is essentially a document that identifies their challenges, what supports they have in place, family supports, etc. A lot of that information we can then share with the teacher, and hopefully start to help the kids see that overlap between self-regulation and the goals that we're setting for them.
I guess the best feedback would be if some mom or dad comes in and says, I see a great improvement.
Yes,
at home.
that's what we're going for.
An example. Hello, my name is I'm a loud talker, I can talk out.
They can't hear you on the recording, that's the issue. If you need to switch over the microphone.
Now it's on. Okay, there I am. So I can give you an example today. Teachers, you see a difference. I've had 2 lessons in my first grade class, and the first lesson was on how our bodies are like motors. Like our motor goes really, really high when we're running, and she showed the dial going up, but then when we're cooling down, what happens? Our motor goes down, and we're cooling down, we're ready, we're focused. So today I had the visual of, she gave me a little motor with the dial, and I had them do a quick brain break before transitioning into another activity that required them to really be focused. And I could see that they were high level, going, their bodies were going. And I said, oh, okay, here's our bodies. And I showed it all the way up high. And then I said, we're going to do some deep breathing. And as we were doing the deep breathing, I put the dial lower and lower and lower back to green zone, to learn, focused. And immediately I saw a difference with the students. They were ready. There was nobody calling out. Their bodies were calm. So that was just with 2 lessons, but having that common language, now they heard it from Mrs. Agnita, pushes into first grade, and now they're hearing it from me. Our hope is that they'll bring it home too. And for me, during parent-teacher conferences, I'm definitely going to bring it up. Well, here's a good segue to communication. I'm goal number 3. Communication. I feel, and we all agree, we feel like we've been doing a really great job with communicating with our families year to year, but we're always wanting to be better. And how can we change things a little bit? How can we make sure that we're effectively communicating? So our strategy to strengthen communication with support consistent implementation of learning and behavior strategies at home and school. Denise and Matt already touched upon it, already mentioned it, that we're maintaining the bi-weekly communication to all of our families through our primary source of Seesaw. Now, a lot of teachers, many teachers, communicate weekly, but bi-weekly, we want to make sure that a newsletter is going home, stating what we're doing at school, things to keep in mind coming up. I know with my parents, I'm one that communicates weekly because there's a lot of things that are going on at school and at home. And I always make it a point too, when we're talking about zones, I do mention the zones to my parents. I know the teachers are also sending home communication, stating about the lessons that were taught that day and the common language. So they're hearing it from us, they're also hearing it from Mr. Urban's update, which has been great. Coming from a parent perspective, so I'm also a parent, I love it. I'm a visual person, I love the videos. You know that they're getting the message clear. And I even told Matt, the first time I saw it, I said, this is great. Like this is, there's no lack of communication. And I love how he makes it like a minute or so too. Because we all know we're busy, parents are busy, parents are so busy. But we want to make sure that we're getting the most information across, and information that's really vital for our community to know about. We're also doing, actually, I did find out from Sierra that, Sierra, starting Monday, she's now going to be able to track how many parents are able to watch Mr. Urban's update, so we can have data to support and make sure that we're reaching all of our families during that time. And we are continuing Spartan Snapshot, also every Thursday goes out. So we feel like we're doing a really good job in the communication area, but like I said, we're always looking for more ways to make sure that we're reaching 100% of our parents, and that no parent is coming into school or calling saying, I don't know how my child is doing, because then we're not doing our job efficiently if that's the case, but I feel like we're doing a really good job with that. Question?
Then I'm going to say thank you very much. I think that's wonderful information. We appreciate it. And it's just delightful to see kind of the changes that are happening and trying new things for that. So thank you. The now we are transitioning to middle school. And the middle school teachers are going to be very appreciative of the executive functioning behind changes that are going to be happening. Although I keep wondering whether parents really understand the terminology executive functioning. If you ask, I don't think they do, and that's my personal bias. If you say, oh, my kid's disorganized, yeah, okay, that they get. So I just caution us sometimes when we say executive functioning, sometimes we need to make sure that the words we're using resonate. And I just caution us executive functioning. Any is not one of them. So my soapbox.
I'm Charter Middle School BSEP, and so, again, we put a lot of work into this in the summer. There's 2 days that we meet in July, we come back in August, and, just in one of our BLT meetings the other day, as we meet monthly for an hour after school, it just kind of came up about how really over the past 4 or 5 years that we've really putting these BSEPs together has really, I think, given a lot of direction to the buildings each year and action items to work on. I'm very fortunate to have Mr. Hutchins as my BLT chairperson, so he's going to start us off with our first priority for Goal 1.
Good evening. And we're very lucky in the middle school to have Mr. Reed as principal, and really saying this in this context because he believes in the collaborative process of the BLT and listening to the other stakeholders at the meetings and not trying to run it and get out of it what he wants. He doesn't look as a rubber stamping kind of thing, so that's very important. So the first goal, as with all the buildings, is around curriculum, that all school students will engage in relevant and challenging learning that will motivate them to be collaborative, creative, and inquisitive. And then under the curriculum goal, we always have 2 strategies. And what I'm going to talk about is addressing gaps and misalignment in vertical and horizontal curriculum scope and sequence, ensuring data-driven instruction and line skill progression. And as Tracy pointed out, not assuming everyone knows what everything means in that, when we're talking about vertical alignment, we're talking about up through the grades. And when we're talking about horizontal alignment, we're talking about across a grade. And so this is really something that I feel like teachers have wanted to be able to do more with. And like everything, it's a question of time and structure. And what I'm really pleased about it for this year is that they're really giving the time and the structure for it. There's been a commitment on the administrative team's part that between faculty meetings and superintendent conference days that we're being given the time for it. And what they have put in place in terms of structure with structured agendas and facilitation guidelines and templates to organize the work. Well, what's really been nice about this too is Matt Berkshire went around and talked to different people, different teachers and other people, because there was a real almost humility and recognition that this can't be coming down from the administrators what we need in order to get horizontal and vertical alignment and how to collaborate. That they have a role in giving us the time and resources, but he really came to us with open ears to hear how we thought we would do it and organize it, because there's a lot of different ways to hack at this problem, and you can't even just do it within the building. So immediately, we start thinking about the other buildings when we talk about horizontal and vertical alignment. They're all structured differently. In middle school, you still have grade level teams. High school, you have departments. So how do you manage both horizontal and vertical alignment between buildings that have such different structures? So all that's been taken into account and thought of. Some other related things that get tied into the strategy for us is continuing our work on study and organizational skills and growth mindset skills, So for example, we did a pre-assessment again on that this year. We're going to do a post-assessment at the end of the year. We're trying to be explicit with students and their families and caregivers about how to be organized. and how to study. Because a lot of students in middle school don't know how to study. And I would take even a step further, that another thing we're trying to address is they don't necessarily even believe in the benefit of study. So you have to hit both of those, because there's no point in teaching them to study if they don't believe that either through a growth mindset that they can learn and do better, or that the actual mechanics of studying, taking the time to study, will actually make a difference for them. So that's what we're working on for the first strategy. Does anyone have any questions?
So taking a look at the next priority that we have is kind of the question of, who are today's learners? And, we talk in middle school, we're teaching Generation Alpha, where students we know are different than years past and shorter attention spans. They have information at their fingertips. So how do we adjust? That's kind of the question. And that's really, when we start looking at data, when we talk about course failures at times, we know necessarily it's not always that students don't have the skills, but are they kind of engaged in their learning? And looking at our data from the summer, our students in the perception survey results, we do look at those, and there's a couple of statements of, I have choice in what I learn, and I have fun learning. And those, it's on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the highest, but those were right at about 3, maybe a little bit lower on the one I have choice. So those are things that we prioritize, because they were some of our lower ones, and from our students. So that's where the goal there, develop capacity for faculty to include student voice and choice, experiences, reflection, and feedback, with the goal of closing our learning gaps. So, we want to provide our staff the capacity and support to address how to, again, engage students in relevant and challenging learning. We know we need to provide more PD for some of that, because there is an adjustment of some things. And we've taken a hard look at some of the things with AI and how that can be integrated more into classrooms. We kind of kicked off some things this month, as September and October we were very busy with some of our other goals to get going for the year, action items. So we focused on AI tools for teachers. And that was a great one to start off with. There's kind of 3 things we're focusing on with Magic School, Google Gemini, CarePod, and that day, staff got a breakdown from our K-12 specialists, technology specialist, Tanya Ricky, and then they had time to actually put together some things and play around with some things that they had questions about. And interestingly enough, the next day I was doing some observations in classrooms and saw some of the things people had created from that faculty. So it's really neat that they were excited about it and already were put into use in the classroom to engage students with that. But that being said, it also, there was a lot of discussion that day in PD here in November about how AI can help with differentiation instruction, finding other engaging activities. So it's allowing, Mr. Berkshire talked about how he typed something in and did a bunch of research in 90 seconds for him. It's doing a lot of the research for teachers. They still have to go and sift through a lot of things, but it's pulling a lot of resources together to create more engaging activities. Kind of heard before that teachers pay teachers, trying to find those other neat things to do, and we're trying to talk to our staff about utilizing the tool in a very positive way by also integrating it into your classrooms. And we have some teachers that are starting that process. It's going to be a process of people feeling comfortable with that. But in the end, I think our goal is if our students are more engaged in their learning, hopefully students are being more proficient. Right? So if they're invested in what they're learning, then that should improve things. And then just the other idea, that idea of reflection. We have some teachers use the time to talk about, again, listening to our students. All right, how can we do some reflective assessment? Exit taking students the time to talk about, what did you think of this lesson? Could there be some improvements? What about the instruction, how we present things? And so again, getting feedback from students. Sometimes the teacher may think that how they're presenting it might be going well. And usually you can read the room with that too, but sometimes students are good if they can give you some more individual feedback versus saying something out in front of a class sometimes too. So again, going back to the idea of building capacity for our staff in that sense. So our next one here, we're talking about goal 2. So creating a positive school climate, learning environment supports all students, minimizing disruptive behaviors and enhancing learning. So again, just taking a look at data from our disciplinary referrals from last year, and again, where were a lot of referrals occurring? Last year, we felt like a lot of referrals were occurring in the classroom for just disruptive behavior that's kind of disrupting the learning environment at times. Nothing egregious, but just was taking time away from learning in the classroom, and how can we address that more? And so, we continued our PBI system of, be kind, be responsible, be SUV, and what does that mean in the certain areas you're in, whether it's in the classroom, hallway, things like that. But then we also discussed as a building creating more grades 6 through 8 common expectations. And what are we expecting when kids walk into the classroom that can be the same terminology for everyone using it in terms of being consistent, being prepared for class, and not being disruptive. So we had all teams did agree upon common language for that, which we've been putting out there. We're trying to, again, teach these expectations. You mentioned you've heard that before about, it's important that we're being explicit about what we're expecting in the classroom, and then being consistent, and then sustaining it too. Just because you teach it once in the school year, you do have to do refreshers throughout and remind people about those things. So again, we also take a look at, for measuring success this year, we're trying to look at our discipline kind of in 3 tiers there. So last year, in tier 1, you're talking about students who have no referrals at all. And that's where you will see our higher percentage of students, all right? And we're looking to increase that up to 83% this year. Tier 2, again, having more students move from tier 3 to tier 2. I think we had about 10% in tier 3 last year. We're trying to get that down to 5. And that was about 25 students. And then again, trying to take a look at talking with teams this upcoming year about students that maybe had some behavioral referrals and issues in the past. How do we bring that information to the new team? And do we have some students that need some other either tier 2, tier 3 type interventions? One of the ways we track some of this is we also are talking in weekly team meetings. The teams are talking about an infraction log where they kind of keep track of students they've spoken to about some behavior issues that they handle themselves. And then so when I go to a team meeting every 2 weeks, we also bring up concerns and we try to address it there. And if we have some students that might need to put some other behavior interventions or even a social emotional learning plan in place to provide other supports. Because there's got to be a root cause behind those problems, right? And that's the thing, is like how can we try to solve those problems to give the students the support they need to be successful.
Brian, a question.
Yeah.
So for the balanced RTI triangle, right, is that breakdown across the entire middle school?
That's grades, yes.
Like all combined,
yes.
right? And then have you seen any issues with, this is the first year with the no phone policy or procedures, so I was wondering if that's skewed or
No,
an uptick.
students have been great with that. They really have.
Okay.
So I give a lot of credit, kudos to them for just embracing it, and they've done well with it.
I was just going to say on that last point about the phones and the yonder pouches, I actually expect that's going to be one of the things that helps with behavior in school, because, being on the phones can be triggering from some students for what they see and keeping up on the drama and all that. So I think that's going to help us a lot. I think it already has. They're less distracted in class by it.
One of the things and this is my opinion on it, but I feel like there's almost a sense of relief for the students that they don't have to worry about the phones during the day. I think, again, it's just my opinion. Students might think different, but it does seem that way, and it's almost like they never had at times. It feels that way with them.
Mr. Reed, they might secretly think that they'll never admit it to us, though.
Sure.
So goal 3 is around community, and it's that Greenville Central School will partner with families and the larger community to improve student learning and well-being. And a big part of that has always been communication, as evidenced by things we get with the perception survey. And I feel like since the district created the communication specialist position, and since Sarah Pizzola has done such good work with it, that the district-wide communications the building-wide communications, I think, has improved a lot. The area that we decided to focus on for this year is more two-way communication between staff and caregivers about individual student progress and needs. And so there were a couple ways we wanted to address that. One was a method we started with last year, but you know, these things sometimes take a while to implement fully and figure out your wrinkles with it, is trying to collect information from middle school families on what their preferred method of communication is, whether that's email or phone call or texting if the teacher does texting. So we've done a much better job this year with collecting that information. So that helps a lot. And then the minor infraction log, which you may remember being discussed from before, has evolved now into the shared student information log with 3 tabs. One of it's the minor infraction log. One is the shared communication log that has the information that families gave us about their preferred method of communication, and where we ideally log our communications with it, and then it gets shared across the grade level team so you can see where other people are communicating. You know, it's not ever going to be 100%. It's hard to record every single thing. I can think of a teacher in particular who is contacting families all the time, and it becomes impractical for them to be recording all their communications, and indeed would be a barrier to them doing the communications. So these things have to be balanced, but it is a useful tool for that. Another thing we've tried to work with is the idea of using Synergy to send out blast emails to all the students in class about upcoming quizzes, tests, and projects, and particularly with quizzes and tests, including in that how we suggest the students study for them, which goes back around to goal 1 with the promoting the studying skills. And then another thing that we haven't really hit yet, but one of the ideas too is to try and look into different technology options for staff that's interested in having a method to text without revealing their own cell phone number. So, because honestly, that is a great method of communication, because email is great, but not everyone reads emails as quickly as they read text. So, any questions on that?
Thank you, we appreciate it. Turn it over to the high school staff.
Thank you very much. So come on down, high school.
All right, thank you for having us tonight. I'm going to let Brenda introduce herself, and she's going to start us off.
Good evening, everyone. I am Brenda Schultes. I am the former high school BLT chairperson, filling in for Ty Russell, who's apparently doing some coaching gig or something like that. He may grace us with his presence at some point during the presentation. We'll see. Want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. For the high school, goal number 1, which is focused on curriculum, like the other buildings, we had 2 strategies. Some of the items in our strategies might sound familiar from the past couple of years. We've just kind of expanded and developed them a little bit differently. So our first strategy is focused on the curriculum alignment. So just like Brian and Jim had just mentioned, looking at vertical and horizontal alignment with our curriculum. So already we have had some restructured faculty meeting time, which has allowed individuals who might not normally be able to get together during that time to get together in one room, kind of brainstorm, develop some ideas, some areas of focus that they want to kind of focus on throughout the rest of the year and in their upcoming meeting times. So that is off and running. We also have embedded in there our classroom visits, which this, I believe, is the third year that we've kind of brought this up and mentioned those. They did kind of take off a bit last year. About this time of the year seems to be like the ideal time for individuals to leave their own classrooms to be able to go into other classrooms to take a peek at what's going on. So our participation increased last year with some positive feedback for the process, with several individuals reporting that although they went to visit a classroom for a particular reason, ended up leaving with other ideas to take back to their own classroom. So it wasn't just beneficial with the front of I'm going here to see this, but also being able to take several other things away. The past couple of years, we've also focused on engagement strategies, and this has kind of developed over time. So the first time that we kind of mentioned this, several of us had gone to a PD opportunity at Hudson City School District, where we participated in an engagement strategies workshop. We thought it was beneficial. We brought it back. It was presented to the rest of the high school faculty, and then we kind of rolled that into our goals. So with that, we started developing an engagement strategies toolbox. So an actual document with a number of these strategies laid out. So if somebody was looking for something to be able to touch that one student or to get a point across, they could go to that toolbox and hopefully find something that would be beneficial. Building on that this year.
Can you give us an example?
Yeah, sure. So one of the ideas was like review techniques. So one that I use quite often is with new material, one of the next upcoming class periods, to roll in some review. Students will come to the door, I'll hand them a card. There'll be some information at a desk somewhere in the room, so then they have to connect what's on the card to what's on the desk. And that's how they find their seat for the day. That rolls into one of our next components, which is using the resource building thinking classrooms. This is a text that's been out for a couple of years. I participated in a class. It's actually, the title is Building Thinking Classrooms in Mathematics, am I right? It is. Math thing, should be science, but we'll use the math and we'll build it in science. When I participated in the class, there were many things after decades of teaching here that really made me sit back and ponder. And then I was like, what do we have to lose? We'll give it a try. So one thing, one technique that's in there that I rely on a number of times throughout the week is random grouping. The students hate it. Let's be clear and be honest. They absolutely hate it. But we set some ground rules at the start of the year that the red hand will go around on the clock 41 times, and then that grouping will be done. And hopefully their grouping's different the next day. So we utilize that. It also stresses the correct size for grouping. And if education doesn't have enough acronyms, they have V, P, V, and Ps, which are vertical, non-permanent surfaces, which means whiteboards. So, and they stress, and this is something I have not tried, which
which I'm going to try to roll in this year, is when students are working at these BNPs, whiteboard, that they can brainstorm their ideas on there, but they should be standing. And that the act of sitting is too passive, and that they'll be more engaged if they're standing upright working on these boards. So we're still hammering out the random grouping, rolling in the whiteboards, and then we'll tackle the standing while doing science work down the road. And that is goal number 1.
Brenda also tried this with our faculty at a faculty meeting, so she had all of the most popular acronyms for education, and then what they mean, and handed them out to our faculty, and they had to find who their partner was going to be for that day as well too. So I don't think the adults really liked it either.
Yes.
Yeah. But they thought how it would be useful for their students.
And then that hand just goes around 60 times, and then we're done.
Yeah. So that brings us into goal 2, which is culture. And we'll be providing a safe, welcoming, secure, supportive, and engaging school environment where all students can thrive. So again, this might sound familiar, but this is part 2 of our communicating clear behavioral expectations to teachers, teachers, students, and caregivers. So what does that look like this year? So just like last year, at the beginning of every school year, I go into English classes and go over expectations and different portions of the code of conduct. This year, the BLT worked on the creation, and the teachers are working on the coherence of school-wide expectations. We have 5 of them. They're very short. They're posted in a positive way. Those 5 are punctuality is mandatory, and then there's like some descriptors underneath each of these 5 expectations. 1 student out of the class at a time. All passes are required. Respectful communication at all times, and then distraction-free environment. We also have the communication of the high school behavior chart. It's very similar to what Brian in the middle school created a couple years ago with their PBIS flow chart. Ours is a discipline flow chart, and it's like minor offenses versus major offenses, so what should the teachers handle in their classroom or in the hallways, and what should come down to the office. We've talked a little bit about the distraction-free policy already, the no cell phone policy with our procedures and some of our practices. That has been communicated out not only at the district level by Mr. Bennett, but also I shared it out just most recently at the 5-week interim report card, or 5-week interim report that went out. That's part of our communication goal, which we'll get to in a second, but we've communicated a little bit more about that cell phone policy.
Christy,
Yes.
you know, it just begs the question,
Yeah.
how's that going?
So I knew at the high school level it was going to be a little bit more difficult than it was going to be at the middle school level. So we've had, and this was about 2 weeks ago when I pulled this data, so I haven't looked at it recently. And it ebbs and flows. Some weeks are really busy, some weeks are not. Some days are really busy, some days are not. So we've had 65 incidences. So in we've had one iPad taken away, two or three watches, smart watches taken away because students were using them, and a handful of earbuds, because students do try to either put their hoods up or the girls put their long hair above, over their ears, and try to be sneaky about it, but the teachers catch on. And then the rest have been cell phones. We've had no issues with students saying, like, I'm not giving you my cell phone, so that's been like the easier part. I think having a mandate helps as well too. I've had a couple students get to maybe level 2, which is, so every time a cell phone gets taken or given to us or taken away, it stays with me till the end of the day. The student can come pick it up at the end of the day. I call home. That's strike 1. The second time it happens, it's the same thing. It comes to me, stays with me till the end of the day. I call home. The student gets a lunch detention. The third time it happens, it stays with me, I call home, and a parent has to come and get it. We've only had 3 incidences where it's gotten to that level, and all 3 parents told me to keep the phone. The one parent said, I'll come and get it when I can. And so it stayed with me for 3 days. That same parent also asked me to have her child's yonder pouch open because she was pretty sure there was a burner phone in there, and there was, and I still have the burner phone. So mom said, I'll get that when I need to. So it's not, I mean, Brenda can speak more towards like the teacher aspect, but it's really not an issue in the classroom. Like if it is, it's handed over, it's brought down to us. They come and see me at the end of the day. We get their, and I stick it in the yonder pouch. So they always say, you put it in your own yonder pouch. I said, I have a lot of Oregon yonder pouches down here, so we just shove them in there.
So if a student isn't using a yonder pouch, but the cell phone isn't visible, I mean, we haven't seen it or anything else.
Yeah.
So what?
Yep.
I mean, like, that's fine. The goal is not to have it
Yes.
or
Yep,
interact.
absolutely,
with it.
yeah.
Right.
And when this, and I should have said this as well too, when the students do get to 2, that second violation, I make them come see me. I say, well, we have a date the next couple mornings, and they come and see me and I watch them put it in their yonder pouch. We also have extras as well too, so when they say, well, I left my yonder pouch at home, perfect, I have like 50 extras right here, let me take one and you can use this. And then we like sign it out to them for the day, so I have to get it back at the end of the day as well too. Yep. And I like, one of my seniors today, he got his second violation, and so they're not there for lunch because this student also goes to Questar as well too. So I said, you know what, the next couple of days you're coming to me, we're locking it up in the yonder pouch and it's staying with me until you leave, because they're there for 3 periods. I'm like, that's just as good as a lunch detention, I feel like. So even though our practice is lunch detentions, not everyone has a lunch, so I have to kind of come up with my own little consequences. Great question. Any other questions about cell phones?
And this is going back to when my child was finding his boundaries and so forth. So one day he came downstairs with a handful of quarters and just put it in the jar. And my wife asked at the time, why? He goes, it's going to be a bad day. Do some students come and just give you the phone to begin with in the day?
I actually have had one student kind of tell on herself that way. Absolutely. She took she took her phone out in first period and looked at the teacher, and she was like, all right, go give it to Mrs. Morgan. So she came out, she's like, I just couldn't help it. I knew it was going to be a bad day. So I have had one student do that. Absolutely. We've also done other things too. Like this is just like a side note on the cell phones. We did purchase headphones that are wired that the kids can plug in. They can absolutely come and borrow them. They are bright and fluorescent, and I told them that this was really cool back in like the early 2000s. I actually have a couple of old pairs. Actually, I think Scott is giving them out in IT. They look like the ones from the 90s that you kind of have to like wear backwards. So I told them that's what I wore when I was in high school, and they want nothing to do with it. So there are some other options too, because kids do like to listen to music, and that's what they missed most when I was asking them at the beginning of the year, like, what did you do the first couple of days when you got your phone back? They're like, put music on right away. And I'm like, okay, well, we have other ways that you guys can still listen to music during the school day. All right. So some other things that we're doing to make sure that clear behavioral expectations are shared out is that at faculty meetings, we have discussions or sharing out of expected behaviors. So I go through the building profiles. That's something that we get at the end of every school year that just shares out like all of our school data. So I pick apart the attendance, the discipline, and the overall course failures. I share that out at the end of every quarter. We do that as well too, so teachers know kind of where we're standing. Melissa does a really great job at the RTI meetings, and so the MTSS, which is the multi-tiered support system. I feel like we're making headway with that. We also are partnering with the Character Ed PLC, and last year, like mid-year, they created different mottos about positive behaviors for our strong attributes. So every month, there's students that are nominated for their positive behaviors. They get some spark and swag, and at the end of the school year, they'll receive like a little luncheon. Like last year, it was a taco bar. So just a reminder, one of the big things about our school that we've been focusing on at the high school was our skipped classes. So in 22-23, we had 182 referrals for skipped classes. In 23-24, it went down to 134. Last school year, we were down to double digits, and we were at 99. So that was really impressive. So this year, especially with the lack of use of phones, I'm really hoping that it gets down. Like our goal, we've been doing 5%. So our goal from 99 referrals was down to 94. But I'm seeing a lack of, like there's not many students, and granted we're 11 weeks in, but there's not many students that have been skipping classes. So I can only assume that has to do with the lack of phones as well too, because kids aren't able to text one another and say, hey, can we meet here? All right, now Brenda and I are going to move on to goal 3, and we will share some information. Do you want to start, or? Okay.
So goal number 3, the communication goal. We have several items kind of embedded into that, both internal as well as external communication. So from the external side, we are utilizing mailings every 5 weeks. So the 5-week interim reports, when those go out, as well as the report cards at the end of 10 weeks. We're using that mailing as a means of getting some additional printed information out to families in regards to upcoming events, whether it be like future region schedules or other information that should go out and get home.
Some tips and tricks.
Right, tips and tricks. We were just talking about that at our meeting last month. Additionally, in terms of external communication, we've also, from the Effective Schools survey, from the parent piece, they were looking for information about the classes. So at the start of the year, a syllabus might come home, it gets signed, it's brought back to school, and then parents don't see it again. So what we had asked is for parents to send out a duplicate, or for each teacher to send out a duplicate copy of the syllabus, one that could stay at home. So if parents ever wanted to reference it, they had that there as well, or it could have been emailed home. Anything else external? Okay. Do you want to take internal?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, so a couple things that we're doing internally with regards to communication. I created a beginning of the year checklist. It was really just a way to assist faculty members and kind of like some reminders of what they have to do in order to have a successful start to the school year. We're in the process of creating a field trip calendar. There are certain times within the school year where there are a lot of field trips that are going out, and it's a little difficult for some of the teachers to keep track of. I know, let Brenda share a quick story about her field trip. I think you only had like half your class or less than half your class at one point.
For a week straight.
Yeah, for a week straight with all the different field trips that are going out. So that is very hard for a teacher then to plan for when you have that many students that are missing your class, even in a week's period. So the whole idea behind a field trip calendar is so that teachers know if you're going, there might be a time where, there's a competition for like FFA. Well, that's only at like one time. You can't choose different dates, whereas if you're going to see a play, there might be a couple different dates that you can choose from, or if you're going to one of the local nature preserves or something like that, there's some other opportunities for that, so that everyone is not going out of the building within this same time frame. We worked on this a little bit last year, but we got it out a little bit too late, a final exam schedule. Again, that's really important for teachers to know, so that if class does not end in a Regents exam and a teacher is giving the final exam, that students don't have 4 exams on the same day in any given grade level. So again, we worked on that last year, it just got out a little bit late, so we're going to start that a little earlier in April this year. And then also, we're going to create an end-of-the-year checklist. Again, it's kind of opposite of the beginning of the year checklist. It's a way so that the faculty knows what they need to do before they should leave, or before they can leave at the end of the school year. Having everything tidied up in their classrooms, making sure that they're checking in with the counselors and that their grades are good, and just any last-minute budget items that need to be taken care of over the summer. Is there anything that you would like to add? No. Any questions on our third goal? Oh, steal your mic back.
Sorry. I appreciate the field trip calendar, because I know that it really affected Brenda's security. But I'm wondering if the calendar is going to include individual students, because in this size school, you have students that are involved in almost everything. And if a student is only given an opportunity to go on a field trip at a particular day, and those days are strung out, they're going to miss a whole lot of days. So they may, I would think, be forced to choose.
Yep, and that happened last year, actually. We had a Spanish field trip going out the same day as another field trip, and some of it we had, I said to the students, you have to choose. You can't go to both. You'll have to choose to go one or the other. So that would be very similar to, like, another thing too is that, especially if students are going to more of like a fun field trip rather than like a solely educational field trip, we make sure that they're in good standings as well too, because if they're failing all their other classes except for the one class that they're going on a field trip to, they need to talk with their teachers, and sometimes their teachers or their counselors are able to convince them in a very nice way that they should really stay behind and miss the field trip because of their academics. But there will be a link or an opportunity for students or for teachers to link the roster or the list of students that are going.
Right.
So that when Brenda sees that there's a trip going to, I don't know, the preserve, that she can click on it and say like, oh, there's only 7 kids going there and none of them are my students, so then she doesn't have to worry about it. Or if they're all her students and she does have to worry about it.
Right, and then there's the question of whether or not she manipulates her day or any teacher to accommodate a field trip,
Right.
and whether or not that's valid.
Yeah.
Your goal too, and I'm going to respond to the letter Daphne read.
Yep.
And I've been talking about this for 3 or 4 years, since even Jay was on the board, and he was concerned about it. But vaping, I don't want to be accused by the letter writer that I don't care, because I do care. I find it to be very destructive. I'm wondering why it can't be communicated to the students that it's very destructive behavior. But where are we with that, and how are we attacking it? And if you don't know, what are you thinking of can be done? And are we reaching out to other schools to see what they're doing?
Oh yeah, both Brian and I were part of different principals groups where these are issues that we talk about. You know, they always ask us for input, like what do you want to talk about at meetings, and that's one of the things that comes up frequently. That and just student behaviors in general. So that's like Capital District principals. So all the principals around the Capital District are seeing that. So we're seeing similar things across the school district. It is not just an issue here. We still have, you know, the vape sensors. We know this summer we asked for clarification with our school attorneys, like what we can and can't do when, like when the vape sensor goes off. Like, can we search everybody that's in there? Do we have enough, you know, do we have enough to search somebody? What happens when we do search somebody and we don't find anything? Because that happens enough. And even though the vape sensor went off, can we still provide or give them a consequence? So these were some of the questions that we asked over the summer to kind of help us out as well too. Unfortunately, they're easily accessible, and there's no way that we can catch every single student that vapes. I can probably tell you that there's probably been at least like 10 to 15 different students that we've searched this year. We're coming up with nothing. So again, there's only certain things that I can do when we search, but I feel like Brian and I are pretty good when we search students. And I know Melissa and Denise, they're always there when they're pretty good at searching as well too. So we're doing what we can, Dave.
I appreciate that, and I know that you're not passing out vapes, so it's not
No,
on you.
no.
But I'm wondering if, you know, if we can't do it in the enforcement fashion, maybe we could do it in a communication model, and because I think that one of the most effective ways of stopping smoking that happened in the 70s and 80s and 90s was commercials that showed the true facts about smoking. You know, we have a communication person. You know, let's make a snow day video on vaping.
Well, she hasn't done a video, but you definitely shared out communication before, correct, Sarah?
Each year we do it, yeah, but
Yeah.
there has not been one, like you said, snow day video campaign on it.
Yeah.
That's definitely an avenue we could explore.
And I'm sure if you asked some of the student clubs, they wouldn't mind helping as well too, yes. Because actually, at the end of last school year, I think it was the health class, they actually created signs or different posters against vaping, and they put it up around. So there are some things that are being done. We have Twin Counties prevention specialist that's in. Melissa would have to provide you some more information about that, which I know she's gone into middle school classes already this year. She's going into high school classes this year. We have a referral process if teachers think that there's students that are vaping often. We've restricted some bathroom visits for some of our students that are frequenting the bathroom. Like, yeah, it's very hard to do, but we try. There's probably about like 4 or 5 kids that are on bathroom restrictions. they hate us for a while, right, Melissa? But, you know, and, I mean, then it gets better for a while and then it doesn't again. So, you know, there's some things that we're trying here as well too. Yeah, any other questions on that?
No, I appreciate your efforts, but we really need to do something about it. To help the kids that are not vaping.
I have a piggyback off that on the vaping is, obviously it's an ongoing thing and it's taking up a lot of your time. One thing obviously is location where mostly the vaping is happening, I guess, is in the bathrooms where you have, it's probably more predominantly towards the middle of the day instead of, you know, during lunch hours, I guess a higher percentage maybe. Is there any way we can put some of the aids in the rooms during those times, in the bathrooms during the sink area? They're not going to vape in front of the aids, and just try to use it as a deterrent.
Yeah.
Instead of just walking around the halls in the area and doing it that way.
Yeah, our aides don't really do the supervision that way, like with regards to walking around. They're usually like in classes or in the lunchroom. But there's been times where, like myself, I know Denise, Melissa, we've all been we pop into the bathrooms during the transition time because that's the most, you know, or when we're doing our walks around. We obviously are going in the girls' bathroom. I know Brian's done it for the guys' bathroom as well too. So I think that's best is when there's adults that are popping in the bathrooms, because I feel like that's when we're actually catching the kids. Like when you walk in and you see them in the act of doing it, that's much easier than when the vape sensor goes off and we have to bring them down and search them, because at that point they've already hidden it somewhere. But we pop in. I know us as administrators, I know there's a handful of teachers that watch the bathrooms, like and they'll even call like, hey, a handful of kids just walked in. I think one of my favorite spots and Denise's favorite spots when the bell rings is to go and stand right outside of like the four-way intersection, right outside of the cafeteria, because then we can monitor the bathrooms and who's going in there, and even just trying to limit, like, okay, there's 3 stalls in the girls' bathroom. Why were there 8, 9, 10 girls that just walked in? And then that's when we can walk in the bathrooms and be like, all right, come on, do your thing, you know, go to your class and kind of move them along that way.
Well, I understand that it's an ongoing thing. You know, my concern is it's a continued issue, so, you know, if there's something new or assertive that we can do. I've even had people come up to me saying they would volunteer their time to sit in the bathrooms for free during those times to help you, and I understand, but that's how much is becoming an issue. People are contacting
So
us.
we can have, I know I missed the last PTSA meeting, so we can share, there was like a form letter that they were creating, because unfortunately the meeting, there's a meeting tonight about, part of it, Jim, is that the vapes are just so easily accessible to kids. Like you're supposed to be 21 in order to purchase any of these things, but they are so easily accessible. So I know there was a town meeting tonight regarding some of the concerns that came from that email as well too, that are out of our hands. And so, I mean, I can share that template letter with Daphne as well too, and she can share it with you guys.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate your attention. Continue to move forward to try to reduce it or eliminate it.
It's a struggle.
But, you know, as we start the budget process for next year, then is this an area that we need to budget to have an aid in there, in the bathrooms? You know, just something to think about. I realize that it could take away from other areas, but if the community feels that this is a big enough issue, it might justify a budgetary alignment.
Just be mindful that that's going to impact our budget as well too. So
100%.
I just know we work hard to make sure that our budget goes very well, and that we're not increasing it, because we have been asked over the past couple of years to take things out of the initial budget passed, and that's not supplies, that's not textbooks, that's personnel. So I think we need to be mindful about that. If your suggestion is to add aides who we have to pay salaries for, that is going to increase the overall budget, and so that might be meaning a tax increase for our tax.
Our community is telling us that they feel pretty strongly that this is an issue. So we do understand that it's maintaining that balance among everything, And so the question I think that we would put is overall in the priorities of all of the schools and so forth, if this is an area that right now the high school needs more reinforcements, then please ask us for the reinforcements because it's important.
I just want to hit it from another perspective. Thank you guys. I know that certainly vaping is not, high on the priority of educating the students every day, but it becomes the babysitting job. But I think it might actually be beneficial, and it doesn't need to be tonight, if some information could be shared with us and with the community, what the parameters are. So like, for example, I know what you can and can't do when you have to search someone. I know who can and can't walk in the bathroom and stand there and stare at the kids. But does everybody know that? Do parents understand how your hands are tied on some of these subjects? It's a great suggestion, Kelly, thank you. Also, Mr. Russell, Michelle just did a lovely job on your presentation. And she did say you were going to bless us with your presence at one point.
Oh, I
So,
Here he is.
Yeah. Right at the point. Any questions? There you go.
Perfect timing.
Any questions for Mr. Russell?
What was this for? It was opening day of JV and varsity sports.
All right, if we don't have any other questions, then thank you very much. And we do recognize that it is a difficult decision and everything else for that. And we love some of the ideas that you're doing and keep doing them. So thank you. All right, then I'm going to move us on to the discussion. Did I miss something? Oh, okay. To the discussion items. So first we are going to start with Nicole, who has a presentation. And it is being, there we go. All right, so take it away.
Probably.
Thank you. Okay, so I just wanted to share around the beginning of October of this year, I sent out a Google form just trying to collect some information about what the majority of students have concerns about and what their largest concerns were. And so yeah, as I said, I sent out a survey, and I just first want to talk about the data collection and how I went about this survey. So I sent it via email to all high school students. Out of all the classes, I got 54 responses. And I also offered a place for additional feedback or elaboration on the issues to be provided. So I started off by listing 3 major options to choose from as to the biggest problem that was plaguing the students. I gave the options of vaping or bathroom congestion, bullying or peer pressure, better Wi-Fi bandwidth, and then I also offered an other option just for them to input their own concerns that weren't listed above. And I gotten those 3 big ones just from discussion with other students about what they thought some of the biggest concerns were, and then I tried to lump those together into 3 big ones, and then put that in a survey and get the majority of the student body's feedback on that. In what I collected, like we've been talking about a lot tonight, vaping and bathroom congestion in general took up 68.5% of the total responses for the biggest issue at Greenville. Bullying or peer pressuring took up 9.3. I think that's also important to point out on its own, but also because peer pressuring in the additional response or the additional feedback section rather, a lot of students did talk about how vaping and peer pressuring kind of go hand in hand. I know when they are using the bathrooms, when there is a high like population of vapors in there, it is like there's definitely a sense of peer pressure that they felt.
So I wanted to highlight these 3 quotes, which I had taken out of the additional feedback section. The first one is just that vaping is getting worse and people are peer pressuring others more. The second one, I'll consolidate, it's a bit long, but it just basically is talking about how students are feeling that they can't use the bathrooms because they're either going to be judged or they feel like they're interrupting something, they feel very intimidated going into it, and now, I just want to point out, now I have an irrational fear of simply going to the bathroom and their vaping is affecting my school day. I think this, just from talking to other students, you can definitely see sometimes how this problem does kind of carry over into other aspects of the school day. So not just, oh, I felt unsafe using the bathroom, but then that is a distraction almost for the remainder of that class and can follow through the rest of the day. Then another one, it's a big stress for me throughout the school day to even try to use the bathroom again, just talking about how the stress carries more than just the time we are actually leaving to use the restroom and encountering these issues, but also just throughout the school day in general. It's a thing on some students' mind. And then I just wanted to talk about what I had taken away from all the responses I read through, all of the students, like additional feedback that they had submitted, and I wanted to kind of consolidate 3 of the biggest issues I saw, which were safety. There's been some intimidation factors that have been used by the people who are trying to create vaping space in the bathrooms to kind of keep students who are just trying to use the bathrooms out of it. And so those intimidation factors have really scared some students into shying away from using the bathrooms or trying to walk farther to go to a middle school bathroom possibly, rather than just using the ones closest to their classroom, which takes more time out of their learning. The peer pressure aspect did get a lot of students where, again, it was kind of intimidating. They don't want to feel that peer pressure when they're just trying to use the bathroom, and it's stressing them out throughout the day. And then the discipline and the enforcement, and we've talked a lot tonight about how it's very difficult to enforce this issue, but I think it's mainly because there's such a large quantity of vaping that's occurring. Students don't really see it going down in any sort of drastic measures, so while there is preventative measures being taken or there's measures being taken to stop the issue once it's been brought to the attention, it's really hard to, as a student, to see how this issue is being decreased when it appears more that there's a suspension, but then they're right back to it, let's say a week later. So it doesn't really seem like the issue's being resolved. It just kind of seems like it's being, managed at the time. And again, I just think that it's because of how large of a quantity there is that it's really hard to see any noticeable differences. So I just wanted to kind of bring that to the attention of the board because I thought it was just really important to see what the students' concerns were, and while they can't always be addressed, it's definitely important to see why students are feeling distracted, why students are feeling, scared to come to school, scared to move around throughout the school day. So, yeah, thank you.
Nicole, just quickly, so you had roughly 56 or 54 individuals that responded.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so just back of the envelope, kind of quick math, you're looking at least 10% of students that feel that the vaping is an issue. All right, so you've got the 56, and then you have the 60-something percent of the 56, and then just out of all students at high school, you're looking at somewhere between 10 to 15, just statistically. The response, did you see an even distribution among the different grades, or were they mostly concentrated among 1 or 2 grades? Because, well, answer.
No, I saw that it was fairly even across all grades. It's a problem that is affecting everyone.
Everyone is. Okay, all right, thanks. Dave, you look perplexed. You don't like my back of the envelope math?
I don't understand your analysis of her data.
No, so basically we have 54 students that responded.
Right.
Of those, 60% of those said that vaping was a key issue. So then it's the 60% of the 50, so that I have that as my numerator, and then my denominator are all high school students, which is why I wanted to know if it's just juniors and seniors or not. So those are the ones that responded. 10% is significant for me. I don't want to minimize that.
Well, you're assuming that, with your analysis, I think you're assuming that their response would be different than the 54, where I think you should be assigned that 54%, the percentage was seeing it this way. If you span that out, the percentages should be the same.
I just wanted to throw in here quickly, that when I had put out this survey, I asked what is your biggest issue at Greenville, and you could see that even students who didn't say that vaping was the biggest issue, when they selected maybe bullying or peer pressure, they still referenced vaping in it. So I would say that while you could, it might be a fair assumption if you were just taking this data and applying it to the entire high school population, you could say 10 to 15% it was their biggest issue. But I would say that it's important to also highlight that students who would say maybe bullying is a bigger issue, that vaping is still a significant portion of what makes that bullying or peer pressuring so intimidating at school.
Okay, absolutely, it's fair. I mean, it's not 1% is basically what I was getting at. I think because there have been other discussions that will we be able to eradicate it? No, they're teenagers. Can we try to take actions that discourage it, just the way we did with the cell phones, and hopefully have some positive unintended consequences, shall we say? It sounds like it's a big enough issue that maybe we have to.
And I look at it, 54 responses, but I don't look at it just 54 students. I look at it, there could be positive students answering one response, so that number can be a higher percentage. And I think it's a good cross-section as far as what the ideas are. And what you're saying is 68 to including peer pressure, up to 75%. Vaping and bathroom use is a huge problem across the board. And it needs to be addressed. It's not only a community thing, but these are students saying it's an issue. So we owe it to them to try to come up with new ways to try to reduce that.
Just one more thing I also wanted to point out is I had 5 responses out of those 54 who had chosen the other option and had said that all 3, so the 3 that I had mentioned of vaping and bathroom congestion, bullying or peer pressure, and a better Wi-Fi bandwidth, they had said that all 3 would be their biggest issue at Greenville. So I think you can, definitely say that those 5 students also think that vaping is a very big issue. I think it was brought up, throughout the majority of these responses, but I also just wanted to highlight that some students did write in all 3 as their biggest issue.
So maybe a better way for me to phrase it is, this issue has extended above 1%. Right? So maybe, looking at it the flip side, because I think in some of the other discussions that we've had in previous years, in trying to quantify, is this a very small group, then that the perception is being magnified. It sounds like from this survey and so forth that that is not the case. You might comment with it. So, half empty or half full? Any other questions? If not, thank you. We greatly appreciate you crunching the numbers.
Nicole, if you could just email that presentation to Daphne so it can be put into the agenda, please.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Perfect, that would be great. All right, then I'm going to move us on to our superintendent, to Michael Bennett, and have him talk about the capital project.
Yes, it's winding down. It's hard to believe that we are at the point of closing out the capital project. It's been over a year now that we've, 2 years, 3 years that we've been talking about it. getting down to the nitty-gritty in regards to last-minute punch list items. And we have had a spend down of some of the monies that we had left to cover some of the alternatives that were originally listed in the project. I believe, and Todd will have to back me up on some of these numbers, but we are down to in the area of $89,000 in which we've got left out of that capital project. Some of the things that we've been able to do in regards to making sure that we're able to spend this down is to take a look at some of the items that maybe we could have expensed in our general budget to really be able to get more items there to be a part of this. Do you want to kind of speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so of the remaining funds, as Mike said, we have about $89,000 left in the capital project fund that was specifically set aside for this project. So the question is always like, how do we get that number to zero? Because we want to maximize those funds because they can only be used for capital project. Any funds that are truly left there that are not spent on capital work go into the debt service fund, which means they are there for future spending down of debt. So that's not a bad thing, right? Any funds that are left in that account go into the debt service that we maintain for future debt payments. What we can't do is just take that money and say, oh, we're going to go buy more textbooks. Nope, that's not allowed. It has to follow specific rules. But one of the things that we can do is look at, are there things that we purchased or services that we had completed, particularly over the summer and into the start of the school year, that we use general fund money to complete that could have been or would have been in the project if we knew up front that we were going to have money remaining in the capital project. So all that to say, we are looking at some of that work, and depending on how much is left in that final number for capital project, we can recode some of those things from general fund to capital fund, which then gives us those monies back in the general fund side. That will go into fund balance at the end of the year or any other needs that come up during this current academic school year. Does that answer that question? Get a list of... Yes, absolutely. So a specific example would be, originally in the project, we were hoping to do more door replacements at the elementary school. When we looked at it at the end of the school year, so like May and June, trying to analyze where we were with the capital project, we didn't feel comfortable using capital fund money to do that work. However, we had some end of year funds that the board approved transfers for to specifically do that work. That work didn't happen until the summer, and now it's continuing actually into this time frame. So we could recode that, because that was originally intended to be in the project. We pulled it out. That would be the main thing. But yes, absolutely. When that's all said and done and shakes out, I can provide a list of here are the things that we recoded to use those capital funds in the most fiscally responsible way possible.
And right now, when are we looking to get all of the paperwork into SC? Is it SED that we have to? Okay.
Correct. It gets submitted to SED, so it has to be in by the end of December to meet the deadline for the state. We are looking to have final payments out on our December 5th check run, so that will hopefully be the final paying out of the contractors. And then somewhere between the 5th and the end of the month, working to compile everything. I've already started working with Mel, our treasurer, and our financial advisor, who helps us compile some of those reports to do the preliminary work that goes into that. So we're in a good place. They have draft versions of those documents ready to go. Once all the numbers kind of settle out, they get input in, and we'll submit everything. My goal is before we leave for holiday break, but absolutely by December 31st.
Any questions related to the capital project? I would just like to thank you. I know that with any construction project, there are always hiccups that come along the way and changes that are needed, board members that are saying, why haven't you done that? And things like that. So we greatly appreciate the attention to detail, kind of the focusing in on it. And it's the process, it's construction. We can anticipate 85%, but we have contingency funds and things like that because there's a lot that we can't anticipate. So, thank you.
And I would just like to add, I want to thank the board for their patience and their questions in regards to different facets of this project. I feel like I've been doing this project since the time I got here. Okay, maybe I have. And I know at times it becomes through the planning phase to the design phase to waiting to state ed to getting contractors on to working out the initial hiccups that come along with construction. The board has been very supportive and asking the right questions and being supportive of the work that I will give a shout out to schoolhouse management for really keeping the school district informed in regards to all the work that goes on between the many contractors, subcontractors, and our architect. I don't know where we would be without that group, but they have been wonderful. But I also wanted to make sure I thank the board for their investment and their questions and their patience. So we're almost there.
And since you have the microphone, you want to talk about the building use update?
Sure. Yep. So we're very aware, and again, thank the community for their patience in regards to the issues in and around primarily gym space. It seems to be a winter issue. We have listened to and read a lot of folks' opinions on where we're at with things. We, again, finishing up a capital project, have a little bit more gym space than we did last year. Not a lot, but we also have started to take a look at our process up to this point. We're working with Rich Kayla, who is fantastic and has been a big part of the buildings and grounds with going through the procedures on building use. One of the things that we've always done has been pretty much a first come, first serve, and trying to be equitable as much as we can. So I had presented, in working with Kelly and Tracy a little bit in regards to some ideas that I have had, and put together a couple of documents. Tracy and Kelly had asked if I would share them with the board and the community, and with all due respect, at some point I will, but I don't feel as though it is something I am ready to share just because I haven't shared it with the buildings and grounds folks. I think I need to better understand the process going through and with our administrators. With that said, two different documents that I've been able to produce is not only the gymnasium use allocation procedures, but also a rubric that is really set up to hit on some of the issues that I've heard in regards to prioritizing our in-season, in-district community use sports. Primarily an example would be basketball during winter season, getting preference. But I do, again, want to sit down with Kayla because she's been the one who's kind of run this. And it's something that when she gets back, which I believe is next Monday, to sit back and kind of work backwards in setting up deadlines and then making sure that we're communicating to our community what the changes will look like. But again, it's a long time coming, and it's hopefully something that will address the issues that we have heard about over the last several months. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Mike, could you share that, for example, with the rubric, that it would prioritize, let's say, larger groups that have more Greenville students?
Yeah, again, the priority levels obviously is versus our in-district athletic teams, making sure that they get the first cut of the spaces. Then priority 2 is youth community sports programs serving Greenville students in season. Priority 3 going on to AAU club sports, primarily serving Greenville youth. Priority 4 into adult recreation, and then priority 5 is outside commercial organizations. And each of these priorities have set up, there's point system within each one of those priorities to kind of get the maximum out of there so we can start to really use this. But again, like I said, I would like to get some additional eyes on this so that we can get this out to our community and our youth sports and our recreational folks who have used the gyms in the past.
Thank you, because I think that it's parents and community members feel that having it on a first come first serve isn't necessarily working to benefit the numbers of the majority of people. So I appreciate the fact that by putting together a rubric, it can help balance the needs of many while still prioritizing then Greenville students and so forth. Will we be able to keep everyone happy? No, we never do. However, I think that it's something that there's a need. We're responding to it, but that also needs to go into place and not have a simple knee-jerk reaction and change everything, because there are also groups that have made commitments for several weeks that this is the schedule and everything else for that. So please obviously keep us posted, and we appreciate you going through, and I think a lot of work has gone into it, and that was obvious in what you shared with us. Any questions about that or anything? All right, then I'm going to move us on to board vacancies. And here we've received a lot of emails. We've had people come in open forum, and one of the things I wanted to do was kind of discuss a couple of issues surrounding it. So Greenville as a central school district is required to fill the seats. There are two ways that it can be filled. It can be filled through a general election or a special election, special election, in which you would have candidates and there would be costs associated with it, several $1,000s. The probably closer to 10,000. And the other option is to appoint an individual or an individual per seat. So in all of the emails that we received, the one commonality was that no one wanted a special election. The feeling was that the costs associated with it could not be warranted or could not be justified. So then with the appointing, so of the letters that we received, I'm going to say there were two major themes. I'm going to call it Theme A and Theme B. And they were pretty evenly divided on people that wanted Theme A and people that wanted Theme B. So in this overall, the question about transparency came up. And what I need to clarify is that the process needs to be transparent in that special election or appointing. But from there, once we start discussing individuals for a possible appointment, that is not public. And that is private conversation. So while people may want that information, it is not public. If someone decides to run in a general election, that information is public. So I just want to kind of clarify that. I jotted down a couple of notes. We had Angela's resignation, and there was also a timing issue in that because we're a central school district, we need to have a solution within 90 days. So there was a time constraint. in October, I will remind people that we had several members missing from the meeting. And that it's only at this meeting where we finally had a full board, right? And I think it was important that decisions were not forced and that all members had a chance to engage in a conversation. Those were kind of my key points, and hopefully that helps address some of the points that were made either in the letters or in open forum. Any questions or thoughts that people want to share?
Couple of points along that. Number one is that we have had legal counsel from the start on this subject. And so I think even where individuals may have a preference on a timeline, we have been counseled by our attorneys as to what timeline we have to follow. And also that at no point did we violate any kind of quorum or open meeting law. There were a lot of individual conversations because people were missing, because we couldn't all be together. And like you said, individual names being discussed privately, because that's, again, what council told us was appropriate and acceptable. But that, I just want to, I mean, none of this has been quick, and none of it has been secretive for any reason other than what is appropriate by law.
Any other thoughts or anything?
Yeah, Tracy, you wanted to talk about moving forward, what's next steps after the appointments are made, and then how we go beyond this initial step.
Thank you. That is a very important point because this is not a simple process. So what will happen is then, let's see, so in the two individuals that are appointed, that the term, all right, let me step back for a second. We're going to need to take and go through this twice, one in May and again in July. So in May, what we will need to do is take a look at all of the votes that come in. We have to separate out any current incumbents from the May decision. We take a look at people who are running for the board in May and are not incumbent. The first two individuals, or the individuals with the two highest number of votes in May that are not incumbents, will sit for the two vacancy seats. And then you still have the current incumbents who are seated until July 1st. All right? Make sense so far? Hopefully. I feel like I need a whiteboard, or whatever Brenda called that. Then in July, what we need to do is to take and, regardless of if you're incumbent or not, whoever ran, you tally it up. The two top vote, the people that got the top number of votes as of July 1st, right, when we have to sit for a new school year, they will sit for a 3-year term. We then go to, if there are 4 people or however many people running, you then go to the next 2. The next 2 individuals will sit for a 1-year term because the 2 vacancies are up next year, and so they will be a 1-year term. So basically, we've got to go through it. We've got to figure out one decision in May. What's the date of the vote? May 19th. Okay, so on May 19th, we will have a tally. right? And then again, in July, we'll have to do it again. And if we don't have 4 people then who ran, then do we have to appoint? I don't know. That's another conversation with council. But that kind of breaks down what the process is. And so I think that it's much more complicated than people initially thought because of all the different steps and everything else. So thank you very much, Dave, for asking for clarification. Any other points that need clarification? All right, then I'm going to move us on to the NISBA adopted resolutions. And Kelly, if you could chat about that.
So in October, NISBA, which is the State School Board Association, held their annual meeting. It is a virtual event. Everyone had a copy of the resolutions that were up for vote. And then there's a voting delegate from each district. Lucky me, got the 6-hour meeting. It was great. I actually jumped off because I had another meeting, got home, got back on, and they were going strong. It's important to remember that in all of the things discussed that night, none of it is action. It is basically us, the delegates, saying, hey, NISBA, this is what we want you to advocate for. So we spent roughly 45 minutes discussing whether 2% milk should be offered again in schools. Well, we didn't vote to actually have it happen. We voted to tell NISBA, hey, go advocate for this at the legislation. So it's frustrating in that aspect. There's a lot of back and forth over some things that in the long run may or may not ever happen or matter. But some of the big topics and the things that NISBA will be advocating for include things like financial support and protection for rural districts when calculating foundation aid, with all of the changes that have been going on at the state level, really pushing for more support so that large areas with smaller populations aren't getting hammered. Things like financial funding from the state and support to meet the heating mandates that they've now put in place because it's an unfunded mandate. Asking for the pre-K programs that are in our schools to be added to the school aid formulas, and opposing charter school increases, and supporting regional high schools. These are all things that NISBA is being told are important to districts in the state. Go advocate, and along those lines, we should be advocating our position with our local legislators on the same things.
And did you want to talk about, you were interested in potentially proposing something, so could you discuss that?
Yeah, so one of the things that came out of this that I kind of got a good education on is these resolutions that we voted on are brought by local districts. Some of them are supported by several districts that have teamed up, just to kind of add some weight to it. So I do have a potential that I'd like to see us maybe put into writing for next year's meeting. And I had conversations with a couple of people at the state convention, which I'll get to in a minute. And that's the idea. The state law says that new school board members have 1 year from the date of the July 1st date to complete their onboard training, some of which is financial training. And I would like to see us push the state to change that rule a little bit, either in shortening that window or saying it at least needs to be started by a certain date. This training is incredibly important for the work we do, and I think that it's very easy to put it off and kind of forget about it. And then when we get into, especially the financial stuff, you get into budget season, you don't have all the information you need, you don't know all the little details. And I think it's just one of those, may seem silly, but it's one of those little things that can help us do our job better. And if we have the backing of NISBA going to the state with that, they probably don't even realize that that's a rule on the books. It just may give us a little more footage. So that's a thought for us to consider as we go forward in the next few months.
Right. So if anyone is interested in being the representative, then
Well, that's
about
another
it,
thing.
right, let us know. And Kelly, if you could do some research on the steps and the timing when it needs to be done so that we can ensure if there's any vote or anything that we need to do as a board, that we do it within enough time.
Yeah, and the first step is for us to discuss whether or not we want that, or if anybody has any suggestions for other resolutions, things that we want NISBA, we want other districts to kind of support at the state level.
Kelly, one resolution, I know they're a long ways from ever occurring in a school district, but rarely do I find any of these objectionable. But there is one I find seriously reservations with, is one that is asking that recess time at the elementary school become part of their, or count toward an elementary student's PE time. And that's, I don't understand, I do understand what it's all about, but I find that to be unacceptable.
I don't disagree with you. There was also another one, there were a lot of things around recess, having it be part of the count as education
Further down,
time.
they're recommending that recess become mandatory.
Yes, that one as well. And I'm sorry, I don't have them marked. I can look them up and get you the information. Some of these, I think, or especially around the recess, we saw not evenly split, but higher numbers of people against or for. And I can get you that information. I just have to, I don't want to sit here and thumb through 50-something pages of resolutions.
And I do not want to be the representative.
You know, I wouldn't have minded if I really had a good idea that I needed to get a babysitter for the day, order some food, and not have anything else on my calendar.
Thank you. Keep your mic on, please, because you and Mike are going to be talking about the annual convention. All right, so take it away, Mike.
Yeah, you were on such a roll though, Kelly. No, I again, I had the opportunity to go down to the NISBA convention each year, and I would highly recommend in the future, we seem to have a few more folks go to attend. This year's breakout sessions, I think, were more topical than they have been in the past. There were some really good keynote speakers talking about the Dignity Index and really taking politics out of self-reflection and taking a hard look at how we are consuming information and becoming more responsible for our own actions. And as that was one of the keynote speakers, there was actually a breakout session which delved more into how schools and communities can kind of take this on and really digest this. So I spent some time taking a look at that. I found that to be incredibly helpful and interesting, because I think as we get into a time, or we've been in a time where civil conversation is lacking, understanding that every news media outlet, every social media outlet are all designed to get us to be against each other, and not, because that sells. So it was an interesting concept, and a lot of work's being done in and around this topic. So that I found to be fascinating. Another area that I did attend, the Rural Schools Forum, which again is just an amazing group of folks who are dedicated to the struggles and some of the issues rural schools have, working within New York State and within the New York State Education Department. Pretty unique issues and problems, everything from EV buses to regionalization. Just some good ideas. They have gone around the state for the last, and I believe they've got one coming up in Saratoga County meeting, just discussing and trying to get a better handle on some of the issues that are in local regions. But again, I found it to be not so much just a therapy session. They seem to have some issues. They also had their national representative there to kind of talk to us. She was a little bit more optimistic, but it was very good. And just one other one I wanted to kind of touch upon that really struck me as, it's a real world problem, and it's an issue in and around internet safety and what our children are exposed to. There was this a session that was put on by U.S. Department of Justice in regards to the increasing issues in and around predatorial activity on the internet. And they really target some of these rural schools and rural areas that don't have a lot of social access, kids getting online and talking to bad actors and meeting up and really not having a great experience, and in some cases suicide, death, sextortion, some of those things. But there is an FBI agency in Albany that can come in and do some parent workshops on what to look out for and to teach kids about some of this stuff. So it's something that I really find as we look at trying to keep our kids safe. We do a lot of things internally for the stuff that seems to be obvious. This is not so much obvious, and there is a lot of it going on. So that's just a couple of things that I wanted to kind of talk about. So
I find it funny that we were at the same conference for 3 days and I did not see you one time.
Yeah.
Not even in the big ones when we were both there. But it speaks to the amount of information. I know everybody's busy and some of us have full-time jobs and families and so on, but if you have the ability to go to this conference, or if you have the ability to go to the smaller one in the summertime in Albany, and you wonder what a board member has to talk about or know about. I attended everything from a law conference, which was fabulous, a lot of information there. Hit the dignity index thing, and separate from you. Advocacy, how we can advocate to the state and the things, again, kind of playing off that the annual meeting, but just how the best ways to get into the legislators, the best ways to talk to the aides, who to reach out to if we need help, that kind of thing. A segment on regionalization and shared services. One that you actually have a copy of something here, it's called board norms. This will play into, hopefully, our retreat in January. It's in the agenda, but I also have a copy for everybody at your desk or at your spot. This is something we should have. This is kind of operating procedures. It's not a policy per se, but it's just kind of how we agree to work together. So, challenge for all of you is to take this, there's 3 different sections, and between now and the retreat in January, kind of highlight the ones that you think are the most important in each section, and bring those to the retreat, because I believe Mark Snyder will be hitting on that with us, so that we can develop those kind of, like I said, those norms, those operating procedures, how we're going to work together. And again, it's something we should have for communication, for transparency. It's something the community should be able to hold us accountable to. So you have that. I attended a workshop on budgetary insights in education, and I understood most of what they were saying thanks to Todd's education to me and training for me. There was some stuff that I have a lot of questions about, but I'll get to you at some point. Zero emission buses was another fabulous one. The room was packed. As you can imagine, no district is happy. We had a person from NYSERDA, a person from State Ed, and a person from NYSBA at the front of the room, and they started it with, "This isn't our fault, please don't hurt us." So a lot of unhappy board members from various districts shared their concerns. 2 of my favorite things, I finally got my chance to speak after having my hand up for 40 minutes, and shared with State Ed, you keep telling us what we have to do, but you don't tell us what will happen if we don't. And they basically said, well, there really isn't a punishment in place, but remember, State Ed can take away your licenses and your transportation authorizations and all of that. Like, we would lose all of our funding if we do not comply. So that was one. I was just like, oh, finally they're gonna actually say something. NYSERDA told us, oh, there's no way that your electric provider isn't ready for this. And I said, oh, you're wrong. Let me give you a name and a number. So there's a really big gap and a really big disconnect. All of the board members were here, and those 4 or 3 men at the front of the room were not having a good afternoon. I don't know why they volunteered for that session, but just so you know, we really still need to push on that and advocate for that. And then lastly, we actually need an advocacy liaison. One of the board members is supposed to be the liaison that NYSBA can contact, that attends the Capitol Conference Day, and so on. So we do need to work on that because it was
Thank you very much. I attended last year and I found it, the topics were extremely interesting, and I do encourage, if you have the time, if you can make the time to
It's
go.
in Buffalo next year.
Yeah.
Way more
Right,
fun
so-
than New York.
Right, exactly, dress warmly. And it generally is in October. All right, then I'm going to move us on to, let's see, we've got a presentation of a new textbook for IB Art. Who's doing that? Oh, there we go. Thank you, Eric.
That was it.
Okay, exactly. Mike, could you talk just briefly about it? I know that this is something that when she went for training, they discovered that this was a resource and she was thrilled about it.
Gail was thrilled. Yeah. Gail came back from IB. For those of you who don't know, their curriculum does change periodically. And she came back extremely excited about the potential, the possibility of some of the work that they can do. And this textbook is a big part of it. Gail is an amazing teacher of art, and has really came back wheels are spinning already with trying to come up with some ideas, and I think this textbook will be great in helping advance some of the work that's already being done by our talented students.
So if you would like to see the textbook at the end of the meeting, it's there, or just contact Daphne, or though we're voting on it.
We are voting on
Yeah,
it,
there we
fully
go.
please.
So if anyone wants to take a look, why don't we just pass it around? There we go. I think several people have already seen it. Any questions related to it? Smells like a new textbook, we like that. All right, so as far as, let's see, we have some second readings of updated policies. We have 5210, the Internet Protection and Acceptance Use Policy, along with 6372, Data Security for that. Any questions related to the second readings of those two policies? Okay, then, moving right along, we have the first reading of 4 different policies. We have 6350, the dissection of animals, and which provides an opt-out for a student that is not comfortable doing it, although most of them are now virtual. But we did have the policy. Let's see, we also have policy 7110, drugs in the workplace. 9020, the maximum temperature, which came to us last year at the end of the year from Albany, and then 6370, the bylaws pertaining to student records. Any questions related to any of those policies? Again, it's the first reading. We will have a second reading next month. And I can share that the policy committee met before this meeting, and so we have another stream of different policies that we are about to put into first reading for next month. Any other questions before I move us to action items? Okay, then I'm going to move us to action items. I need a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting of October 6th.
Kelly, Mariah?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the finance reports for the month ending September 30th, 2025 and October 31st, 2025. This was, sorry, go ahead. Second? We need a second?
Okay, I've got Eric and Kelly.
Okay, and we have 2 because the October meeting happened earlier because of the holiday weekend on the second Monday when we normally have a board meeting, so not all of the finance reports were ready. Any questions, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to accept the Committee on Special Education recommendations.
Jim and Eric.
Any discussion?
I'll be abstaining from the vote.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to accept the tax collector's report. No, personnel, excuse me. I need a motion to approve the personnel agenda.
Kelly, Eric?
Any discussion?
I have a question. On the the physics, I think, the learning equivalency, is that, there's no charge to the students for that, is there? Because it's outside of the.
Not just students, but to the school district, right? Yeah.
So, okay. All right, thank you.
So there's no charge to the student, but there is a charge to the school. Okay. All in favor? Now, if I could have a motion to accept the tax collector's report for the 25-26 year.
Kelly? Eric?
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. I need a motion to approve the real property tax adjustment for the 25-26 school year. Motion, second.
Jim?
Any discussion? Dave, you look like you want to say no?
No, I was gonna
Okay.
have a question, I turned the page and there's the answer.
All right, all in favor? Aye. I need a motion to accept the resignation of James Good, Jr., Board of Education member, effective November 30th. Go for it.
I need a second. Mariah?
Any discussion?
We're gonna miss you, but thank you for taking on a bigger challenge.
Thank you. I do want to say one thing one is thank you to the community and the board, also to educate myself on, it's something you have to gain experience on, so I would appreciate, continuing to put the student first, and, whatever we're producing the student to go out into the workforce or school, I've appreciated that this board and the community, even if finances are tough, have always done whatever's necessary to provide the students the platform needed. So I just want to say thank you for that.
And if I could just real quick, thank you, Jim, personally, for being a support for me as a new superintendent in this role. I know you were going out as a new Board of Education member at the same time, so I do appreciate the work, your commitment, your dedication to helping this school district run efficiently, and the questions and the challenges that you've brought to us has made us better. So good luck in your next venture.
Thank you very much, and obviously we're still here, so if there's anything we can do to help, I'd be happy to help. Thanks.
We know where to find you. All in favor?
Aye.
I'm sad to say, but thank you very much for all of your service. It's been wonderful working with you. I think that the perspective that you provided has been instrumental in ensuring that we have the best results, working together as a team, and keep pushing. Thank you. I need a motion to approve the appointments of Karen Overbaugh and James Bucci as members of the Board of Education to the Greenville Central School District effective December 1st, 2025 until the next annual election on May 19th, 2026 to fill the vacancies created by the resignations of Angela Moriello and James Good, Jr. Upon the completion and fulfillment of the oath filing, and dropped the E at the ING, I should know that one, of the oath of office.
Kelly? Jim?
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Why are they together? As this?
Because the terms are the same.
I think I did. Everybody has their hand up? Oh, you were just raising your hand to
Yes,
question?
sorry.
Okay.
And any nays? I need a motion to approve the corrective action plan dated October 14th, 2025 for the fiscal year July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025.
Mariah and Eric?
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. I need a motion to approve the change order pertaining to the Greenville Central School District for the 2022 capital improvement project in the amount of $42,184 for plumbing and heating.
Mariah and Jim?
Any discussion?
Tom, was the old unit worn out or insufficient? I see that they went from 1 to 3.
So this is 3 smaller spaces at the elementary school. Currently, 2 of those spaces have historically not had any HVAC system in them, which has been problematic. The 3rd space is an IT closet and did have an old unit that was toward the end of its life. But rather than it failing and figuring it out, we included that with the other 2.
Any other questions?
You know, is that part of the capital project, right? Were those items on the list of contingency?
These were things that were kind of sitting on the sidelines, waiting if there were funds available. It was not part of the original bid for the project, but because it's similar to work that we did in other areas, we're able to do a change order to make the work happen.
That's how it works, if it's adjacent or attached.
Correct. This is in the spirit of what voters approved for the project, right? We did plenty of HVAC throughout that building and replaced other units. This is then using the remaining funds to do these last couple of
I'm sorry I didn't ask this question before, but the 80-some thousand, 82,000, there are no other items listed in the project, contingency or otherwise, that could be satisfied with that? They're all larger?
They're larger, or the time frame would not allow them to be done in the time that's needed.
The work's gonna be complete.
Correct, correct. So this one actually, we were able to do because the contractor was able to commit to actually doing it this week. So like, they were able to get scheduled and have everything in place to commit that it would be done in time for the time frame that we had.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the contract between the Greenville Central School District and LaSalle School for the 25-26 school year.
Elliot and Eric?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the textbook, Visual Arts Course Companion, as seen over there.
Jim and Mariah?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to appoint membership for several committees.
Eric, need a second?
Any discussion?
Kelly?
Sorry, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve an overnight field trip for the FFA State Convention.
Kelly and Eric?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to accept the donations for the Greenville Central School District.
Kelly? Eric?
Any discussion, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, I need a motion to approve surplus items.
Dave? Kelly?
Any discussion about these two-way radios? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, I need input items for discussion at a future meeting.
I've been busy this month. No, I think I'd really like us to get somebody on the books for advocacy liaison next month because there's some deadlines coming up. So if anybody is interested, I guess what? Talk to you, talk to Daphne. Anybody want?
Whoever.
Anyway, so that's one thing. But the other thing I would really like us to consider going back to, I think it was done a long time ago, in the spirit of our goal of communication and transparency. A lot of us are sitting on different committees in the district, whether it's safety, facilities, DLT, technology, policy, audit. Those are the ones that come to my mind. But I'd like to take turns. I don't want to bog every meeting down, because this one's really long.
I'd like to see us a couple of times a year, just kind of give an update of what the committee is working on. Real quick things, we can space it out. I'm happy to create some sort of little flow chart, but for example, DLT and what our goal is this year, it's important for all of us to know because it's going to come up for us to look at the end of the year, and we should know what's going on in these different areas. So that's something I would like us to consider starting over the next month or two.
I think that if it's done, so it's not every single meeting, but if we take a look at the calendar over the year, as you're suggesting, then, and we rotate the different committees, then it's more just for all board members to be aware of some of the key issues, what's being discussed, and everything. I usually take no more than 10 minutes.
I'll be on the board. However, the question I would have is update on the upcoming Latin trip that's in the spring with Ms. Mayo. Not only the amount of students, but current fundraising and commitment to the students. And also to piggyback on something that Kelly put earlier, since you'll have 2 appointed positions, which is about 28% of the board, is on some of the training. You know, there till May. The current rules are you have 1 year. But now you have 28% voting on the budget coming up this year. It's going to be hard for them to come up to speed. So perhaps we can reach out to try to get them the training necessary early in order to commit and assist during this process.
Well, one of the trainings that is available, it's available like on demand. So if Daphne registers them, then it's available tomorrow. I mean,
That's all that's available right now, and you can do it at your own pace. And how did you do with that?
I did fine with that. I just want the expectation, you know, to move forward to, if you're appointing, I know it's on these 2 new individuals and you have till May, but having that training makes your input on these meetings much more valuable. So if it can be made available to them right away, then they can start assisting even sooner.
December 1st. Right. For that. I did it virtually, as I did it in person the first time, and then I did it virtually again after several years, and found the information very, very useful, and would highly encourage the virtual option. It worked out very well for that. Any other topics for discussion? Right.
I don't know much so much the topic, but my kids are involved in FFA, and I remember the board approving money to go to the national convention, and nobody went. And we actually had a former Greenville student who was running for, I'm going to get it wrong, national president, I think. And it's kind of a black mark on us that we didn't go. And the school district and the board has done everything they could to kind of support the kids in going. But the advisor had like family coming in from out of town or something and didn't. And especially when we have, like, the chances of another Greenville student making it to that level that Hunter Smythe has done is probably not going to happen, you know, like, and so it's
You
not,
underestimate it.
well, no, but it's, you know, just because the kids will take different paths and, you know, but we should have been there to support him, especially then. And it's something that we normally do go, the other day does go generally, and so to not have, especially in that, didn't win, but.
Right. Well, I
should have been there to cheer him on.
But there are 2 issues here, because
So we gave them money and then we didn't know, it was like.
The board, no one requested it from the board. So this is a discussion about.
I thought we had approved 6 people in July.
You have to go back. They go to so many different things. You have to go back.
Right. My understanding, and again, would need clarification. So what we could do is table this for
Yeah.
It's
It's not an answer, it's just more that if this is gonna happen, that like the board, you know, well, we're giving money to organizations to do things, then need some sort of a check that they're following through. And
Okay, I guess what I'm saying is the board needs to be aware of a need. If the board or the superintendent is aware of a need, and in the past, a request has always been to the superintendent, and I'm not able to say, that's okay.
I think, are you asking basically if we approved money, was it used or was it put somewhere else? Or are you just trying to do like a checks and
It
balances?
just kind of checks and balances.
Okay.
I remember the vote, because it was very specific, because it was like 1,000 something per person, because it was an expensive trip, because it was.
So it's something for the next meeting to try to have it.
Yeah, Indiana or something like that, wherever it is.
All right, well, let's get some more information. Let's also make sure that we put it through the proper channels first, and then, why don't you give Mike a call?
Yeah, just real quick, my understanding is there's state competition and there's national competition. And in order to get to the national competition, we have to have students who have qualified to reach the national conference. In the past, we've had several students who've been very successful in being able to do that. My understanding is this year we had no students qualify for the nationals, which would mean that we have not funded anyone to go out because we didn't have any students qualify for nationals, but I'll double check on that.
Absolutely, because I think we've had precedents, and there is a belief that if someone qualifies, then that individual goes. We have not sent groups of people as, I don't want to say spectators, but cheerleaders, because they have to pay that for themselves. And I can think specifically of when in one of my children's classes, someone made vocals regionals, and we paid for that, for the individual to go with the chaperone, but we did not pay for anyone else to go. So I think that let's get some clarification and, again, have the communication and so forth with Mike, please. Okay. Anything else that we want to add? You look perplexed. You? No. All right, just a quick couple follow-up on reminders. We have our next board meeting December 8th. We also have followed up by, let's see, the January 12th, and that one is going to be the first budget meeting. So again, kind of Jim, to your point, that faster that individuals undergo the training, then the more productive I think that they can be. And then finally, please mark your calendars for January 21st. This is the board retreat. We're going to be looking at establishing some of the norms, and I think that we've scheduled this retreat because with so many new members, then it is a helpful way to learn to work together as a team, because in the end, the only way that we work together is collectively, together as a team. So I think that by having Mark facilitate it, he has worked with us in the past and just offers a wonderful breadth of experience. I think he was a board member also, so he sees different hats and so forth. So I'm looking forward to that. All right, then I'm going to move us on to the closing open forum. So the same rules apply as stated during the first open forum. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Please come up to the podium and take one of the microphones. Well, Rich is going to do that. Just grab it, put it on top of the podium. And just for the record, right, it's getting late. Then just state your name just for the record. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Laura McInerney. Is this working? Just a little bit. Good evening. It's blue. Testing, testing. Can you
grab another one?
All right. Good evening. Great. Again, for the record, I am Laura McEnany. Thank you for giving us a forum and listening to us both at the last meeting and addressing some of the concerns around building use during this meeting. I do appreciate that all of you know that space is an issue. However, I do find it confounding stating that it is a first come, first served basis with respect to the building use forms. I submitted the building use form on July 15th for Greenville Youth Basketball. So if this process truly operates on a first come, first served basis, our request should have been given priority. So I'm confused as to why it wasn't. Additionally, I've noticed other groups who have gotten more time in the gyms than us, including the middle school and the high school gym, who I know for a fact submitted their building use form post July 15th. So if we could maybe look into that, because I don't think that's accurate. It seems as though we are approving building use requests regardless of when the form is submitted, and we're saying yes to most people. And I think that that is part of what's creating this gym allocation issue, is that we're saying yes to so many groups instead of having some discernment. Stating that you need to better understand the process, I appreciate that. However, after every season, we have made sure to meet with administration and have a post-reflective meeting to go over suggestions, to talk about obstacles, and I propose solutions. So again, understanding the process, after those meetings, I would have expected that there would have been efforts to understand that process so that the next season, it would have been improved. Kayla, it was mentioned, kind of runs this. She's on maternity leave, so talking to her would be helpful. But again, the building use form has signatures for the building principal, for the head of building and grounds, for our athletic director, and for our superintendent. Kayla's not asked to sign that form. So I think we also need to look into the process of who is really in charge of it. My understanding is that Kayla, who does a phenomenal job, and Leanne currently is doing a great job of scheduling all the approved groups, but she's not running it. Additionally, anytime I've had questions for Kayla in terms of gym space or usage, her response has always been, let me touch base with our AD, Ms. Wickham, and I will get back to you. So my understanding is it is Ms. Wickham who is then answering those questions with respect to gym space, not Kayla. I love the idea of having a rubric with a priority level. I think that's a great step. I do think it should be quite obvious without the need for a rubric, but I'm glad that we're putting that in place. Over the past 2 seasons, as I've mentioned, I have met with administration both January 19th, 2024, April 14th, 2025, to go over possible solutions, one of which was getting the building use form in the summer to ensure that there was plenty of time in which to allocate gym space. Further, I sent email reminders in the summer and in the fall so that we could prevent the situation that we've had in the past with struggling to get space for our athletes. In all my years with Greenville Youth Basketball, we have never been limited solely to the Ellis Auditorium gym. This is the first year that I made sure to get it in early in the hopes that we could again start games, especially home games here for our 3-4 and our 5-6 groups. And without having access to those larger gymnasiums, we are now going to be forced to not offer games to about 120 currently youth athletes because of that choice. And it is a choice, because I did a cursory review of the calendars for the outside groups, and I have found times on Saturdays in which Greenville youth basketball can absolutely be assigned hours during a Saturday in order to have games. So if I can look at the sports schedule, the practice schedule of our school teams, and the outside group schedule, and manage to find that time, I'm hard pressed to understand why, with bringing this issue up so many times and having to bring it to the Board of Education, that has not been something that I've received communication about. Hey Laura, we looked at it, and here are times where you can get those youth athletes in the gym. We understand it's important, and we understand that games is the basis for development. Theater programs that, as others have stated, lead to our modified JV and varsity athletes. We're not asking, to be clear, to monopolize gym space, but as the largest nonprofit, volunteer, in-season youth organization benefiting only GCF students in grades 1 through 6, a group who submitted their request this summer, how are we not allocated time in the middle school and/or high school gyms? And why, as an organization that continues to grow, when we've tried to do everything right, are we receiving less space this year than any year before? I'm so disappointed to have to go back and email 120 families to let them know that I can't email you out a game schedule because unfortunately we were unable, even though I'm able to find gym space, we're unable to get that approval despite me doing everything possible to advocate for these kids. And I'll end by saying, I don't have any skin in the game here. My children are in 8th grade and 11th grade. But I care about the youth athletes here, and I always will. That's why I continue doing this program. I have put in several hours into looking into ways in which to solve this issue and provide those solutions in a respectful way to the staff, the administration, and now the board. And I really hope that in the next week, I have a response that does right by our children. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. James Bucci. Just wanted to wish Jim good luck. Congratulations on the new position. And just wanted to thank you guys for the appointment. And not just on my behalf, but a lot of people in the community were excited about it. So just wanted to thank him. Looking forward to working with everybody. And I'll be looking forward to doing that training. Thanks a lot.
And you were a youth basketball coach.
And I was a youth basketball coach.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak? All right, then I need a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss several legal advice from our attorney, who has been patiently waiting in the back. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
How you doing?